are mucus-free. We 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 are mucus-free. What's going on, brothers and sisters? Yeah, we are mucus-free. Welcome to the Mucus-free Live podcast, episode number 27. And today we're a couple hours later. I know originally I said we would go at 6 o'clock. Then I decided let's go at 8 o'clock. And one of the reasons for that is, as quiet as it kept, I really wanted to do a lemon juice and distilled water enema. I wanted to get that in so that I could be clear and have all of that beautiful energy to share with you all today on this podcast. And that brings up a point about, when you put the Mucusless Diet Healing System at the center of your life, and you figure out how to negotiate and navigate other things. There's a lot of people have that problem in their head, or they're kind of like, well, how can they always want to negotiate things with the Mucusless diet and your health. It's like you're negotiating your health away based on social issues or other things in your life. But once you really commit to this path, you figure out how to make this a priority. Make it a priority, because people make some very strange things priorities. And so, but when you commit to making the Mucusless Diet Healing System a priority, you figure it out. But as long as you got one foot in and one foot out, you're not going to be imbued with the answers that you need when you need them. And that's one of the things that's a great benefit of diving in and really, really immersing yourself into this practice and dedicating yourself to it, is when you need certain answers, when you need certain things, they open up. When you don't need those things, even if you might really want certain things, you don't get access to it. It's not available. And so, the universe takes care of you in that way, or whatever other worldly spiritual concept you want. Insert spiritual concept here. So with that being said, I knew, it was like 6 o'clock was rolling around, and it was like, yeah, I could have went live. I really wanted to do an enema and just kind of chill. And I also wanted to see how this time slot does. And any of you, if you want to tell me in the chat, 6 o'clock is supposedly the best time for me to have the podcast or to have a live broadcast, because of the time zones. And, I get folks in Europe are still up. It's not too late, and the West Coast and all this kind of stuff. But seems like sometimes I get more when we go live a little bit later in the evening. We tend to get more simultaneous viewers. So I don't know. It's always a deal looking at the analytics and just seeing what time slot works. But it definitely seems like this later time slot does a little better. So I don't know, but let me know in the comments what's your thoughts on that in terms of going live with the podcast, because I have flexibility, and that was part of the reschedule. And that's, I love flexibility in my life, because with the Mucusless diet, sometimes I want to do enema. Sometimes let me get a little bit more time to make me some juice. It's that kind of flexibility. Now I understand not everybody has that, but I've been designing my life for the past 18 years. I didn't start off with everything the way I wanted them. How long you been practicing the Mucusless diet? I had a vision and understood from the very beginning that, life is an art. This is an art form. This isn't, because, I'm speaking to the folks that's been doing things for a couple years. That's beautiful. But sometimes there's unrealistic expectations or unrealistic things in their head, in folks' head, about where you should be and how long it takes and that kind of thing. And part of what we're going to go over today will hopefully elucidate some of this, will uncover and reveal what it takes to practice the Mucusless Diet Healing System long term, at least what it took for me to practice it long term. And I know that my case study is similar to some others like Brother Air and some other people, just in terms of the mindset. You always hear me talking about transition, transition, transition. The transition diet, lesson 15, 16, and 17 in the Mucusless Diet Healing System, depending on which edition you have. The lessons shift numbers a bit. But the transition diet lessons, so misunderstood, so ignored. There's somebody, I won't get into it. The people that are in the Mucusless Diet Healing System Facebook group will know there was a posting today, and there's a lot of problems with that particular posting. But I will say that in that post, there was this was someone that wanted to make some criticisms of Mucusless Diet. The problem is they didn't criticize the Mucusless Diet Healing System. They thought they did. They were criticizing their invention of something that doesn't exist. And not one place where they mentioned the transition diet. And I've wrote article after article about this, talk about it over and over again. And some people are starting to understand, so I'm happy about that. There's definitely some people that are starting to really get it and understand that it's important to, like I said, I'm kind of aggressive mentally. I'm aggressive with attitude. I push you to develop the attitude as soon as possible. I'm the wrong person to come to if you want like a gentle transition into the attitude of practicing a diet. You want to kind of feel warm and fuzzy about it. You want to wait. Like I say, I'm the Harriet Tubman of this. You got to go now. It's now or never. There's no, let me put this off till next week, or, this is a bad year. I have to do this job, so I'll worry about that later. It's now or never. That's my attitude about it. With Mucusless Diet Healing System, is now or never. When Harriet Tubman showed up and she says, look, I know how to get you to freedom. Are you coming or are you staying? And thousands of people stayed when they could have went with her, took a chance, and been taken to freedom. But they stayed, and as Harriet famously said, I saved 1,000 slaves. I saved hundreds of slaves, whatever the number was. I forget. I saved 100 slaves. I could have saved 1,000 or thousands more if they only would have known that they were slaves. When you think of that kind of scenario, if someone's coming and it's time to go on the Underground Railroad, you don't have time. There is no, well, can I have 24 hours to mull it over? I need to speak to my therapist, and there ain't no time. There's no time right now or never. So people sometimes mistake my hardcore attitude when it comes to the mental game and the speed with which you jump on the path. They'll misinterpret that for me being extreme with the diet, but then you start to hear me give recommendations on what people eat, and people get surprised. Like, wait a minute, you say it's okay to eat this, it's okay to eat that, but I thought that mucus-free, but isn't that hybrid? And then it's like, I'm very gentle when it comes to, I would rather see somebody transition very slowly and be able to transition for the next 30, 40 years, because when people always ask, how long is a transition? The rest of your life. Transition is a lifestyle. It is a law. It's not only a lifestyle and an art, but it's also a scientific law. Why not get in line with the law? I mean, that's with the natural law. That's my attitude about it. I mean, yeah, I could, you think, well, I'm gonna be mucus-free. It's like, there is no, as we're seeing with Brother Air and the stuff that the historic things that he's doing right now with fasting, there's no limit. He's still transitioning. He's just transitioning at an incredibly high level. But the transition doesn't end. Like we always say, look in nature at all the different iterations of transition, from the changing of the seasons, from a embryo and a zygote unfolding into a baby unfolding into a little person, a young adult, then an adult form. That's a transition. You can't speed that up unnaturally. You can't use your mind to unfold faster. So why would you think that you can use the power of your mind to just skip over the transition, and I can be mucus free and in a weekend? I can do it in a couple years. I see it every day. And every day I see people that had that type of attitude fail and fall off the wagon. They had a terrible time. They were hard on themselves. They were always trying to measure percentages. Like, well, I'm this percent raw, and I did this and that. And it's like, so we don't deal with that. This is about being calm. This is about being at peace. This isn't a competition. This isn't any of that. I'm about peace. I like peace. I don't, I'm not into that other stuff, man. I want peace. Like some of these folks out here, they're not into the peace stuff. My thing is, like I said, I'm intense. There ain't no time to wait. Get into this, get on the path, because sooner or later you will have to. I mean, you will have to choose. You will either get on the path or you will stay on the other one. And we know where that ends up. Go take a field trip to a hospice, take a field trip to a nursing home, do some community service, go to a nursing home in the hood. Some of these nursing homes, they don't see family members for years. Do some community service at a nursing home and spend some time there, and understand that is your future unless you change something up. And I'm not guaranteeing that, things happen on any path, but we know that's the direction that you're going in on the other path. This thing, and I don't care what your keto and your paleo and your raw, good luck with all of that. Because when they're cutting out your intestines and giving you a colon transplant or a kidney transplant or heart transplant or whatever it is that you can afford, or they just burying you in a box, you're gonna wish that you maybe have rethought a little bit of what we had to say today. And my whole thing is to try to help you be able to sustain this so that you don't burn out. So many people burn out because they don't transition. Burnout. You don't want that. You want to just you want to be comfortable. It's okay to be comfortable. It's okay to it's okay to eat. First of all, I got to put that out there. It's okay to eat. I generally tell a lot of people you need to eat more. They're not eating enough food, so they're not having good natural bowel movements. They're just sort of, well, I'm not really having bowel movements. I'm raw though, but I'm not, it's like, well, why don't you eat a little more? Have a little bigger salad, make sure you have those natural bowel movements. I'm all about that. But at the end of the day, this is a monumental choice. And sometimes we don't point that out. And oftentimes when I meet people on the street and I'm talking about the Mucusless diet with people, I always undersell it, because I don't let my excitement of it, because that'll scare people away. So I act like it ain't nothing. Like, oh yeah, I practice this diet. I lost 100 pounds and overcame all kinds of diseases, and I've helped other people overcome chronic disease, but it's not a big deal or nothing. It's just what I do. Generally, that makes people a little more attracted to it because they're not turned off, because I'm not shoving it in their face. But, today here, but there is a time and a place to basically say, like, this is the greatest thing that we've uncovered when it comes to human health. This information, this technology that's in the Mucusless Diet Healing System, the principles of the transition diet, the principles of mucus and pus poisoning, the revelation that those foods are deadly, that there is no paradox as they've taught us in school, in health class, and in nutrition class, where there's this great paradox. Well, we're omnivores and we're supposed to eat meat. We got to have a balanced diet and eat all this stuff. However, this meat may cause cancer. This meat may cause high blood pressure. It may cause strokes. This is their studies, not mine. This is their scientific studies. There's a paradox there. So one day you're saying, well balanced, just eat this. But that same stuff you're eating may be the cause of disease. And we're saying, no, there is no paradox. You're not supposed to eat that at all. There's no paradox. And so that is incredibly freeing. That's great. It's good news. That's gospel. That's great news to know that, to be empowered by the message that you do not need to eat foods that cause your annihilation. Isn't that good news? Ain't it that good news? I'm happy about that. There's some people that are sad because you're still addicted. And I understand that because I was there. That addiction to the pus and the mucus forming foods. I get it. The addiction to the alcohol, the addiction to the weed. I just probably lost a bunch of people out here. I know. But we got to understand, I'm not saying nothing negative. I'm not saying you got to get off of this stuff tomorrow. I'm just saying, let's be honest about it. Let's be honest about it. That's all I'm saying. Be honest about it, and then incorporate some kind of transition with these things. Just knowing that this isn't something that you want to be on for the rest of your life. Incorporate that into your transition. That's all it is. That is all it is. And let me say hi to some of the folks here in the chat. What's going on? Patricia, my man Nicholas, how you doing, man? And Bay, what's going on? Bay, what's going on? Mr. Hull, what is going on? Lynn from Australia. I'm assuming Australia, not Austria. And James, what's going on? And Song Spira says this time slot works well. Okay, I appreciate that feedback. And let's see, we got a question on the table. I'll come back and see if I have time. I'll answer some of these questions about iron deficiency, because I definitely want to get to what I eat in a day as promised. We'll get to that. So if I get a chance, I might come back to that, or I'll do another video. Do a separate video where we can kind of get into the concept of deficiencies, because we have a whole different take and a whole different discussion on that. We tend to focus on the symptoms and not the concept, not the disease concepts. So the symptoms that you're experiencing are very real. When you come at things from a symptomatic type of analysis and standpoint with the Mucusless Diet filter, you will arrive at different answers and solutions in terms of how you can deal with that. So we'll get into that a little bit different. And let's see, where are those articles at? I need a site address because this is my first time coming here. So I'm not sure which articles you're referring to if I mention something, but basically the links that are in the description, you sign up for our Insiders Club. Then we publish 7 books. The one book that you want to get a hold of today, if nothing else, is the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. I have an annotated, revised, and edited edition that I sell. There's other editions of it that's out there. Check them all out if you want. But read that. Read the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and that's where you want to start. If you totally new to this, check that out. But if you do sign up for the Insiders Club, there's introductory information, some free recipes, that kind of stuff that you can get access to there. Yeah, we got all kinds of information. That's the one thing we have. We got a lot of information for you that you can take your time with and really absorb and be open-minded with it. I will say that out front as well. But what's going on, Francis? And Brady, what's going on? And so let's get down here. Gotta say, love the repetition of the transition. I did this years ago, all raw juices. Not only stayed with it for a year, it's great you have this guidance. Thank you. Thank you, Maxine from Texas. Well, thank you for tuning in, most definitely. And my man Alpha says mucusless all day, mucus free all day, most definitely. What's going on, Blink? And Janine, or no, Gian, I'm sorry, from Sarasota, Florida, and everybody else. I appreciate you so much for being here. And we got a nice crew live, so I really appreciate that. So let's get down to this. I know what you've been waiting for is the discussion here about what I eat in a day. And I created this uh, PowerPoint back in September, and I've thought about doing this for quite a long time. And then I, so I created this, but then I kept putting it off or thought that I would go and make it better or whatever. But now so I literally just today at 5 o'clock, like an hour before I was going to go on, I decided this is what I'm going to do. Because I was thought about doing a Q&A and all these different things. And I'm like, you know what? This is something that I've had on the back burner. I think this is a good time to do this. So let's do this right now. What I eat in a day on the Mucusless Diet. Now, as being Professor Spira, I'm going to do this very differently from any of these videos you've probably ever seen before. So instead of focusing on one day, which day would I be focusing on? Because the Mucusless Diet Healing System is dynamic. There is really no typical day. There's plateau points, and you might have a typical day in one plateau point, or maybe a typical day within 1 to 2 years. But the whole point of the transition is you're always evolving. It's always getting more refined. You don't have to start off perfect. You don't have to start off refined, and you don't have to put a time limit on, like, if I don't get to this by this particular time, then I failed. You don't, that has no place in this, in the Mucusless Diet Healing System. That's just not helpful. So as we always do, the standard disclaimer: the content is part of a presentation that is strictly for informational and educational purposes only. If you choose to use this information on yourself, me and Mucus-free Life LLC, other content creators and presenters and contributors take no responsibility for your actions, decisions, or the consequences thereof. This is not medical advice. This is not this is not licensed dietary nutritional advice. This is a discussion about my experiences on the Mucusless Diet Healing System, my observations of over 18 years of looking at, watching other people be successful, people fall off the wagon, and folks fail, people, we've seen it all over these years, and then the combined wisdom of, we plugging in with Brother Air and others in the community, and having that opportunity to also pick their brains for so long. That's what this is. So this is, I don't claim to have no kind of license or nothing like that. This is just a friendly discussion about the Mucusless diet with your good old pal, Professor Spira. And what I also would like to say up front is, do not use the following as a model. So this would, I guess, a good time to mention the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course that I have that's available. There's a link for that is available down below. In the e-course, I take you by the hand, and we go from lesson to lesson over 2-month time. Every other day, you get a new module available, and we go through each lesson in very great detail. It's easily absorbable because you got the video, you got audio. We get deep into these discussions, but at the same time, it's not too much. I really make sure to not be too overwhelming in terms of information. I would definitely recommend check out the e-course. If anything, please read the Mucusless Diet Healing System book before doing anything. If you decide to do anything, don't use this as like, okay, well, that's what Professor Spira did. This was what he was eating, so let me do that. Please don't do that. One of the huge principles of the Mucusless Diet Healing System is its customizability to each person that practices it. My body, my history, what I used to eat, the addictions that I had, the addictions I still have, all of that is going to be different from you. It's different from Brother Air. It's different from Takora. My living situation is different from other people. I live by myself. Some people have kids. Some people live with large families. Some people have a significant other. All of those things factor into how you will practice the Mucusless Diet Healing System. Before you can design your life, design your mucus-free life, you have to know the principles. And in order to know the principles, that's where your study comes in. Checking out the Mucusless Diet Healing System, going through the e-course. There's a bunch of free information we have online. So that's important to understand. So this is meant as a case study. This is just a case study of what one person's experience was who did follow the principles over a period of time. So as I said there, read Mucusless Diet Healing System, Rational Fasting, and Spira Speaks to fully understand these lessons. Overview. So what I'm going to do is divide this into 3 different modes. I like the word mode. I get to go into different modes when I practice Mucusless Diet. So there's a mucusless mode, and mucusless means not eating any mucus forming foods at all. So this is where my most strict, when I'm eating, the most strict dietary kind of situation. Then there's mucus lean, which is a word coined by Professor Arnold Ehret, which means that you're incorporating some mucus forming foods into what you're eating. Not everybody thinks like that or likes or even uses the word mucus lean. I find it useful for educational purposes like this, to understand that there's a difference. If you want to be real strict for whatever reason, it's your time to be strict and to be 100% mucus free, then you have that. You have mucus lean, you got that. And then you have the fasting mode, using Arnold Ehret's fasting methodology. You'll notice I don't have a raw. I mean, you could further break them down and say they're, mucusless raw period, or a mucus lean. I mean, you can do mucus lean raw, but I'm not into that. I'm just me personally. When the mucusless diet, that encapsulates everything. That encapsulates the raw. That encapsulates the veganism. That encapsulates the vegetarianism. That encapsulates the fruitarianism. That even encapsulates the folks that fast indefinitely. We'll do that. Say that instead of using the common word for that, because it's such a divisive term. But all of these modalities and things that people are trying to aspire to dietarily are within the context of the Mucusless Diet Healing System. But when I analyze it and kind of look at it, the mucusless, mucus lean, and fasting modes tend to be the best way for me to describe this. And so what I'm going to do, this is what nobody's done before that I know of, and especially in these, what do I eat in a day? What I eat in a day depended on what year of we're talking about of me practicing the diet, because it evolved and changed over time. So I'm going to look at what I ate years 1, 2, and 3 on a mucusless day, a mucus lean day, or a fasting day, what I consumed or did not consume, years 1 through 3, years 4 through 10, years 11 through 15, and years 16 through 18, 16 to the present. And so this is, as I've had this idea for a long time, for years I've wanted, how can I portray the transition in a meaningful way so that this just kind of blows people's mind? It opens it up, not necessarily blow the mind, but just open it up to see like, oh, I see what you're saying, how things evolve over time, years, to give you that perspective, so that you got to be comfortable with time. That's one of the practices. It's like kind of a meditation. It's an advanced, there's definitely advanced psychological practices and places to explore when you're practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And those are some of those things that I really enjoy and I love. But I notice that I have to be careful with sharing some of those things, because if you're not ready for it and you try to go down some of those rabbit holes, it can do harm. And so that's why I tend to only share some of those kind of things with people that are, a little more advanced, or some of the folks that I work with one-on-one, or in groups, some of our little groups and stuff. But real quick, I want to review. I'm gonna go real quick. This is lesson 15 from the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course. This is the transition diet number 1. So I'm not even going to put this into presentation mode. I'm literally just going to go down through this. So, and if you want to see the whole lecture, this is available for free on my channel. If you look up lesson 15, you'll actually see some different versions of it. There's a number of lesson 15 things that you can find in full, but for people that are just here brand new, this will be important for you to understand these principles, or at least some of these principles. So I'm just going to kind of go through and pick off a few things. Nature's mills grind slow but sure. This means this is the classic tortoise and the hare. Would you rather be the tortoise or the hare? Most people they think they want to be the hare. They want to run real fast. They want to win. They want to hurry. There's just this urgency to hurry and be, I want to be 100% mucusless as fast as I can. And, it's like this thing. And the wisdom of this path is to understand nature's mills grind slow but sure. Be the tortoise, not the hare. Sustainability. We ain't looking for perfection. We're looking for sustainability. And when you follow these principles and you don't let a lot of these other dogmatic things mess with you in your head, the hybrid dogma, or raw dogma, or some other dogmas. You can name some in the comments. Dogma. The kinds of dogma that prevent you from transitioning, to me, that's the worst kind. Nature's mills grind slow but sure. A carefully selected and progressively changing transition diet is the best and safest way for every patient to start healing. Nothing is more incorrect than the mistaken idea that a decades-old chronic disease can be healed through a very long fast or a radically extended strict fruit diet. Every time I post up, we have memes. I have a couple memes of that quote, and we put that up in Instagram. Some folks they're blown away by that. They're like, really? He said that? Because they're under the impression of fruit fasting and love as that's all. Just fast longer, eat more fruit. That's just dig deeper. That's not the Mucusless Diet Healing System methodology. This is about knowing when to hit the gas, when to get off the gas, when to hit the brake, when to just touch the brake a little bit, hit the gas a little bit. This is about driving that vehicle. This isn't about, what some of the folks do with that fruit. They're like, they hit the gas. They're like, yeah, this feels good. Getting on the run in, head up on the highway, they're going nuts, and then all of a sudden you go through elimination and they don't know what to do. They're losing control of the vehicle, and then they hit the brake and, have an accident, mess up the vehicle. There's no need for that. If we're dealing with the transition diet, dealing with this path, there's no need for that. To define mucus lean, a diet that still has some mucus forming foods in it. Transition means to slowly change from disease producing foods to disease healing foods. And Like I say here, you may shift between mucus-free and mucus-lean periods over time. This is not a straight line where we're like, okay, I'm eating a little mucus now, but I'm gonna be mucus-free in a few months. And once I'm mucus-free, I'm never going back. That's not, no. Don't ever don't think like that. That's not helpful. That's not the methodology. The worst habit of all, the heavy breakfast. These are all very the classic principles, but I can kind of speed through them. Never drink during a meal. This was something that I was able to incorporate pretty much right from the beginning, and I refined it over time. So I started, because I used to drink a lot during a meal. Then once I read this, I'm like, okay, I waited until after the meal to drink. And then, years later, it got to the point where I won't drink after a meal for like 4 hours or something, like a long time will go by before I drink something like juice, maybe, drink, water is a little different, but something like that. This always gets people, that soups that, and I don't care if it's raw or not. And if you're into soup, that's fine. That is part of your transition. But we're checking out the methodology, and there's a reason that Eric says soups should be avoided, because if particularly the soups that combine, that are not just liquid, but the soups that combine liquid with the solid vegetables, or the partially cooked vegetables, or partially cooked whatever, the reason is because it's just more difficult to properly digest it. And this is also why certain you don't want to go overboard all the time with the blending and doing some of the smoothies and that kind of stuff. And so these are all, and this is the kind of stuff that we get into. We go through all this and way more in the e-course, because this is like these little areas that people, for some reason, they take for granted. They think that they've studied something else, and maybe somebody else that says, oh yeah, I like the Mucusless diet, that's cool, but they're not really teaching the Mucusless diet or coming from that headspace. So they get surprised at these little details. It's like, oh, this little detail, you're not supposed to do soups. And that doesn't mean that you won't talk to Brother Air and he'll talk about soups that he used to make for his family. That's part of that's what I'm saying. That's the dynamic nature of this transition, where there's not hard, fast rules. There's principles and guidelines. And the better that you can understand these principles and guidelines, the better you will be at being able to, again, design your mucus-free life. You want to design it. You don't want to just ad hoc, just like throwing that stuff at it. It's like you design it. Take some time and really understand these principles and design. And when you incorporate things like that, you're much more likely to be able to hold on to it and be very successful. We'll skip over that. The vegetable broth, only 2 meals a day. So that's a principle. In general, only 2 meals a day are recommended. A third meal can be incorporated, again, from this recommendation. That doesn't mean that I've always only had 2 meals or the 3 meals, or, it doesn't mean that. It's just, this is a general principle goal that is very attainable if you do what you're supposed to do, and you eat enough. As he says here, even though the quantity eaten might be as much as 3 or even 4 meals. So yeah, you're having 2 meals, but these might be really big meals. Again, from this methodology, I understand that there's other ones. I understand that there's the eat little fruit meals all day methodology, and that's a tool that you might grab out the toolbox at some time. That's a paradigm shift in itself, to understand those things as a tool. That's a tool. As I've done that to see what it was. I've done the fruit, eating little bits of fruit all day methodology. There's definitely a time for that and a recommendation for that, but for me, this nothing beats this in terms of long-term methodology. The 2 meals a day with an optional fruit meal in the morning kind of thing. Evening meal should not be eaten sooner than 5 or 6 in the afternoon. Simplicity is important. avoid mixing too many kinds of foods in one meal. I was able to pretty much get into that pretty early on in the transition. Was able to definitely drastically simplify what I was eating prior. Avoid fats. This gets into that kind of principle. All fats are unnatural and therefore should be avoided. But then he says, if you're going to use fats, use something like peanut butter or some other kind of or some other nut butter. And that's what I did. I used things that I wouldn't recommend today, but I'll tell you that I used it because that's what I did. So I did the soy butter. They didn't have other stuff now. Now they have, you can get avocado. If you need to get like that type of butter kind of stuff, you can get the avocado based or the olive oil based, and avoid the lecithin and that. That's part of the tools and things that we'll talk about in a minute. But again, don't get lost in. It's like people really like authoritarian, like that. Whoa, they want the rules. They want to be dominated by the rule. Avoid. It's like, fats are evil. Just never have. No, just avoid them. If you have them every now and again, or even if you go into a mode where you eat it every day, who cares? It's part of the transition. Just understand it's not optimal, and you can feel it as you start to clean yourself up, and then you start to mess around with too many fats, too many things. You're going to feel the obstruction. You're going to notice it's a little harder to go to the bathroom. You'll notice that you might start getting a little puffy or retain water or any number of other kinds of things if you start to overdo it. But there's the famous discussion of Brother Air, who had the peanut butter and jelly on toast for several years, a number of years into practicing the diet. And so and he would never eat anything like that now, 40 years into practice, and he's on a whole different level. But there's something to be said about allowing yourself. See, some people, they're not allowing themselves to transition. They're trying so hard to bring in the raw food dogma. And I love y'all. I mean, because I got all kinds of friends that's where they're at. They're 100% raw, and I love it. I love you guys. But I'm offering, if you ever can't handle that, you got a home over here with your brother Spira, that if you need that, you need to cook food, that, it's okay, especially when you get into this, using this methodology, and you're dealing with, there's a whole world of difference between cooked mucus-free food and cooked mucus-forming food and cooked pus-forming food, the cooked meat and cooked cheese and stuff. This whole, raw foodists tend to put all cooked foods under one banner, which highly problematic. I don't even know where that came from. That's like, that one's hard for me to understand the logic there, because you're 100. I mean, there's a cooked Big Mac, is not the same as cooked collard greens. Please, let's be honest here. Come on now, be a little rational. So menus for the first 2 weeks: the combination salad consisting of raw and grated carrots or coleslaw or both, lettuce and spinach, half and half, and 2 or 3 spoonfuls of stewed or steamed vegetables such as green peas, string peas, or spinach, and add one of the following: cucumbers, tomatoes, green onions, celery, lettuce, etc. This is the quintessential combination salad. I'm going over this because I lived this. All these principles I've practiced to the best of my ability, but we're going to look at how that evolved over time. You can make an oil dressing. The Mucusless Diet Healing System is not an anti-oil modality. I know that's out there, that's popular. And if people are staying mucus free and they want to be off the oil, cool. But most of the people that are off the oil, there's some kind of mucus that they're indulging in heavily. So the methodology here is basically, you use a little, it's not the end of the world. You make some kind of dressing with some oil, or you get something that has some oil in it or whatever. It's like that's, and I had plenty of oil, especially in the early days, for the transitional purposes. Baked sweet potato, that's, classic transitional item. To supply the mucus broom that mechanically cleanses the digestive tract. That's the goal of the meal. Elimination. The goal of all of this is elimination, not nutrition. We just don't think like that. I mean, you could apply nutritional theory to this, but we just don't. We have a new paradigm, a different system of thought, a new way of thinking based on concepts that are elsewhere in the Mucusless diet that I won't get into now. Vitality equals power minus obstruction, V equals P minus O, that kind of stuff. Check that out, lesson 5 in the Mucusless diet. But based on these, we just don't think in those terms, in those like nutrition kind of terms. So the goal of the meal is for elimination. You want to eat in a way that leaves behind the least amount of metabolic slimy waste, because that slimy waste over time, from childhood, from babyhood, when gone uneliminated, it backs up slowly. And there's a reason why there's an epidemic of colon cancer, and there's an epidemic of different intestinal disorders. There's a reason for that. It's not a mistake. It's not some kind of weird. There's nothing weird about that, as long as we're eating as weird as we eat. Eating as much acid forming, all mucus forming foods become acid forming when they remain uneliminated and sit in your gut for decades. And don't make me get out the pictures of intestines of cancer people and don't make me. Because when you say, because if you need to be scared straight, just Google some of that. Google a little bit of, just colon cancer images or something like that. You see what you find out. That's why not avoid that if you can. But if you're drinking Coke and you're eating hot dogs and hamburgers, again, that's what you have in store. Is there, or unless, you can play the lottery. If you want, you can be like, well, you want to be you trying to be the one, the couple percent of people that can eat like that and not go out like that. Because everybody wants to go to the examples of those people. Like, well, what about George Burns? He smoked and did this and that, and he lived to be. Well, okay, so you want to play the lottery. You want to indulge in all of the things that are diametrically opposed to nature, and indulge yourself, go down that path, and you want to play that game of maybe I can, maybe I'll be the person that can get that old and eat that filthy. Good luck playing that lottery, because very few people end up happy at the end of that lottery. So I personally wouldn't play that one. I would look into eating in a way that doesn't promote colon problems, and then you don't have to have intestines cut out. To me, that's a good idea. It's a good idea to avoid that. Supper example number 1. So I won't go over each one of these, because I'll talk a little bit about some of these in my thing, and there's the rest of the meal examples. And the one point that I want to make in terms of this transitional, so I will go over this overview of the transition menu logic. I've sort of picked up on this. Most people don't. Even then, they read the book a bunch of times, but they don't kind of notice this unless you have it brought to your attention. For the first 2 weeks, in lunchtime, you're having the combination salad with the baked veggie, and then at supper, you're having some kind of baked or stewed fruit. You're not having raw fruit yet. You transition into raw fruit. You're not eating anything raw yet. Everything is cooked. A second week, lunch, baked or stewed fruit course, followed by a combination salad. I call this Eric's 2-course meal. And this is good for people if you get hungry, or you got a job that you're, where you need, a lot of like manual labor or something like that, and you're hungry or you need that stimulation. This is a good thing to deal with. Some kind of baked or stewed fruit first, wait 15 minutes, then followed up with a combination salad or in some kind of vegetable meal. Then the third week, we switch, and now we have a fruit meal, raw or cooked, for lunch, and then a combination salad or baked veggie for supper. And then the fourth 2 weeks, fruit meal for lunch, and then the raw or baked fruit course in the evening. So look at what this transition is doing. We're starting off where we have the vegetables at lunchtime and then cooked fruit in the evening. Then we switch it around and we have cooked fruit at lunch and vegetable meal in the evening. Then we flip it around again. In the third 2 weeks, we have fruit meal at lunch, the optional raw. Now, optionally, you can have raw fruit now on this plan. And then at supper time, combination salad or baked veggies. And fourth, the fruit meal. Now after that transition, this is the first time where instead of switching it back to vegetables, now we're at raw fruits at lunch, which is the classic. If there is a classic meal or a classic day, it's fruits in the afternoon and vegetables in the evening, or salad in the evening. You don't start there. We go through this fairly sophisticated transitional methodology so that by the time you get to raw fruit in the afternoon and a vegetable meal in the evening, you have transitioned quite a bit. I love that. That's brilliant. Most people read the book, never even notice that. Like, that doesn't exist. That's brilliance. That transitional methodology. Nobody else is talking about that. That's sophisticated and it's subtle, but most people totally miss it. So hopefully you can take advantage of this observation, because it is a game changer. And I think probably the reason it's hard for people is it's hard time. With the Mucusless Diet Healing System, there's an opportunity to master time. And master patience. Patience is one of the great virtues of this path that I had to learn, because was at my core was a fairly impatient person. But through practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and also through my educational pursuits, the path that I was led on to be an educator, I had to learn how to be pretty patient. And so, So anyway, that's that. So with that said, let's go on ahead and get into the actual what I eat in a day, and we'll go over kind of the different years. And we'll see how this rolls. So from year 1 through 3, 30% of the time I would be mucus-free, or I would have mucus-free days. And a mucus-free day, years 1 through 3 for me, would usually consist of no breakfast. Sometimes I would either have no breakfast. If I did eat something, I would eat fruit in the morning, or I would make some juice. That would be the morning. The lunchtime, I would have fruit in the afternoon, or Eric's 2-course meal. So where I'd eat some kind, and I got into the mono fruit theory pretty early on. And so at this time, I was a lot of what I had access to was like apples, pears, oranges. It was in college. And so I would go down to the cafeteria with a duffel bag, and I would throw tons of fruit in there, and I would go and get vegetables, whole vegetables off of the, that were supposed to be for show on the buffet. I'd go and grab these, heads of broccoli, heads of lettuce, heads of cauliflower, that kind of thing, heads of romaine lettuce that they had on there. And so that was kind of the vibe. Supper time, which means dinner. I don't know if that's a weird word for people. That's old school, supper. But combination salad and steamed vegetable or baked banana surprise. Now I have the recipe for baked banana surprise. I believe is one of the 5 free recipes that you get when you download the gifts when you sign up for the Insiders Club. So you might want to check that out. But yeah, so this was so at my best. This is at my best. Now, see, most people would only share this with you. They'd be like, I practice the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and they would share this as if this was all they did, as if this was all they ate. This was just me at my best when I was eating. Even maybe you could argue my fasting was the best, but no, in terms of the eating part, this was me at my best, where mostly mucus-free. Maybe there, I'm giving a little leeway if I had a little oil or something. I'm not really counting that here. Maybe I had a little oil on a combination salad or something like that. Boo-hoo. I'm not incorporating that here, in especially years 1 through 3. But this just means I didn't have the corn chips. I didn't have the bread, the toast. I didn't have any kind of vegan processed foods. That's the mucusless day. Then we moved to the mucus lean day, and I was mucus lean about 60% of the time. So most of the time in these first 1 to 3 years of practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System, I was what you would call mucus lean, where I incorporated mucus-free along with mucus-forming foods systematically. So morning, fruit or juice. Lunchtime, Eric's 2-course meal with toasted wheat bread. And I might not just have one piece. I'd have 2 or 3 pieces well toasted. Why do we toast it? Eric lays this out in the Mucusless Diet book. When you toast wheat bread or 100% kind of grain bread, and there's a whole kind of the anti-wheat thing that's sort of new, that wasn't happening back then. With there wasn't as many people with gluten sensitivity yet. That was like a new thing. That shows you the weakening of humans to the point where, more and more people can't tolerate what you're not supposed to eat anyway. You're not supposed to eat dairy anyway. So it's perfect that people can't eat it, that they get sick when they eat it. You're not supposed to eat it. And wheat, you're not supposed to eat processed wheat. So more people can't handle that. But from transitional purposes, it's a great tool if you can handle it. So you toast out the gluey properties. When you toast 100% grain bread, and I would use that Ezekiel bread, you get it in the frozen section. Used to be organic sections. Now most places are combining everything together, which is annoying, these supermarkets. But so I got that, and that was like, that saved the day. So I would have this very toasted, well toasted wheat bread that I put all kinds of soy butter on top of that. In the years 1 through 3, I was a soy butter head. I ate soy butter. Like I said, today there's other options. They didn't have like alternatives to soy back then, because nobody thought soy was that bad. Like, not like that. We knew it was mucus forming, but we did the stigma against soy hadn't hit yet. And so they hadn't created other products. These days, you can get stuff made from avocado oil, from just different things besides soy. And so, but I'm just saying, and I'm not saying it, and like I said, don't use this as a model. You might be way further advanced, and by the time you get this information, you're way beyond some of these things. But know that this is there. If you ever have a bad year, you have a bad, not just a day, but if you're having a bad year, or maybe you have a bad decade, this is here. And I say that because too many people go back to eating McDonald's. They go back to eating Burger King. They go back to eating Pizza Hut. They'll be raw for 2 years or 3 years or a year, feel good for a period of time, go through a period where they don't feel good. They didn't learn this. They didn't learn and understand the transition methodology. They go all the way back to Pizza Hut. or now that what's in fashion now for the more extremist people is to go from 100% raw vegan to 100% raw carnivore. It's one of the craziest things you ever want to do. Like I said, if you want to be a carnivore, you better be eating that diarrhea sauce. If you want to be a real carnivore, don't be going into the store getting your raw meat thinking that you're some carnivore. Go out in the woods, kill that animal with your canine teeth, go for the gut, get up, get into them intestines, put it all, wipe it all over your face. You get all that blood and you get the feces that's in there. And y'all have seen the video that I posted of that tiger getting into that zebra, and it's licking that diarrhea up. I know it's nasty. Y'all are nasty going back to carnivore. That's the point. So this could prevent so much of that. Eat a soy burger. I ate soy burgers. This was like a vegan, processed vegan thing. The difference between me and then the garden variety vegan was I knew I wasn't going to be eating like that forever, and that it was very tempered. It wasn't all the time. It was like, when I would take breaks, I wasn't eating soy burgers every day, but every once in a while. And I also didn't eat it to replace meat. By the time I actually went, for the first year, I actually didn't eat too much of that. By the time I went back and started eating some of the processed vegan stuff, I wasn't craving meat anymore. So this wasn't a replacement for meat. It was just mucus. It was just for my mucus craving. I wasn't craving meat. I was craving mucus. And I learned that through the practice. I wanted mucus. It was like meat. I had got that out of my system, but I still wanted mucus. So that's where that. Beans were huge. Beans, huge part of my transition. Ate a lot of beans. But whenever I eat all this stuff, it's always with a big salad, always with the big combination salad. If I was to have some of that kind of stuff, those first couple years, I was still messing with cereal and almond milk and that kind of stuff. That didn't last too long because physiologically it wasn't happening. Then it's supper time, combination salad, steamed baked vegetables, and this is like it's a big meal. This is a big hearty meal. And I had these big things of steamed vegetables made in an onion saute, dressing, the store-bought vinegar-free kind of dressing is what I used a lot in those days. I wasn't making my own dressings and stuff. It was just got store-bought stuff that if it wasn't for that, it'd have been I might not have been successful. Like it was like that because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to evolve into that next level yet. And so another thing I hope this does is for some of you that are more advanced or some of the raw foodists, this can give you a perspective of what somebody can do if they need to do it. And you can be more empathetic to them. You don't have to make them feel bad because they're not 100% raw. That's not helpful. You can know that these options are there when people need it. And believe me, people need it. Because not everybody has had your background or your experience or your trajectory. And depending on how long you've done what you do, you're still finding your plateau points. So don't put down somebody else just because they're eating a little bit of cooked food. We have that in our group, cooked food shaming. I'm not into that. Do what you do. But if somebody posts up a picture or something of their transition, and they got the cooked food, don't tear them down because I'm telling you, some of these people that to this day that I see going off and falling off the wagon and they're falling on their head. There's no graceful falls here, going down into this really, really messed up diets. Those are some of the same people that used to criticize others who were eating cooked food. So I don't want to hear it. Be positive, be supportive of people on that kind of thing. Be supportive. Everybody's at a different place. You'll never see me coming on here like, like, oh, that person ate some cooked food. Like, when I'm critical of entire institutions. I'm critical of cultural dynamics. I'm critical of I am critical of pus eating for people that are not on the path yet, that's not transitioning yet. But once you're on the path, I'm very sympathetic because I've been there. I understand how hard this is, and there's times you fall off the wagon, or you dib and dab, or you show up someplace and you haven't quite transformed your body yet, and you have a little meat, a little taste, there. It's all part of it. And I'ma say it because nobody else is saying it. I'll say it. That's part of it. That's part of the transition. You will still eat some meat. You are going to have a little bit of dairy somewhere. It's okay, because that's part of the transition. We don't write it down into the transition because obviously we don't want that to be, we don't want you to be there forever. But when it happens, when there's a relapse, and there's a whole other video I have, it's an older video that I get a lot of praise for on the addiction to pus and mucus forming foods. In the 12-step program kind of concepts, you just understand that's just a part of this. So relapse is going to happen. The occasional cottage cheese. So I got into that for a minute, not super long, but I ate, and this is a recommendation in the Mucusless Diet book. It's not vegan, so the vegans will be mad. But cottage cheese with dates and applesauce is, again, it's the if you focus on, and this is where our disagreement is sometimes with hardcore ethical. I'm saying some people, you can make a case, an ethical case to some people. There are some empaths, and sometimes even it's hard to make these cases to empaths, because for them to be able to eat that animal flesh, they've had to create such a mental gymnasium in their head to be able to rationalize the suffering, murder, and enslavement of animals. So and that can be hard. You have to actually kind of take them through a good pedagogy, a good curriculum. But just sort of forcing this stuff in their face, it's not going to work. What I find works better is get people to transition. Get people to clean themselves up. That's self-interest. See, you're trying to get them to feel for something that they can't yet feel for, especially your garden variety, just average sociopathic type of person. We're my concept of psychopathism and I know that I'm not using these words in any kind of medical type of way. I'm just using these as in a offhanded kind of way. But the inability to feel empathy, the inability to feel and understand feelings, for just lack of a better kind of concept or term, we use psychopath. To me, we're all on the spectrum. It's the psychopathic spectrum, and you're on it. Because to live in this world, you have to be a little psychopathic, or you wouldn't be able to function. If you felt everything, and you were that total, but which I think is our natural state, honestly. But in our world out here, you gotta be a little psychopathic to deal out here. Because if you're feeling everything, if you're the type of person that cry, somebody steps on a spider and you feel that pain and you cry about that, that's hard. I mean, that's a hard life. But you can put yourself in an environment and around people. You can join the Janus monks, and there's things that you can do to be comfortable if you feel like that. But in this stuff out here, we all got to be a little psychopathic. So the whole point is transition. What I find is with people don't like pain. They don't like being sick. So if you appeal to their self-interest, here's some information that can help you with that cough, help you with that lung problem, help you with that asthma, help you with that inflammation, that elephant foot, help you with whatever that is. Like, here's some information with that self-interest. Then they check out the diet, and something magical happens when you start to apply these principles and you start to clean yourself up, all of a sudden you start to feel in a way that you've never felt before. You feel the tree. You feel the grass. You feel the squirrels. You feel the deer. You feel the birds. You don't just see them. You don't just hear them. Now you feel them in a new way. And you feel them so deeply that the thought of somebody killing them to eat them makes you mad, sick, disgusted. And congratulations, you've now gotten over your first hump. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen with me just showing you a slaughterhouse video. You had to clean yourself up first, and you cleaned yourself up based on self-interest because you don't like how it feels when you're sick. You don't like how it feels when you have pain and arthritis in your joints and headache all the time and blowing your nose all the time. You don't like that. Self-interest is what's going to make this thing work for people that can't feel, that have lost their reason and ability to empathize. And so, I mean, we're talking pedagogy here a little bit, but I mean, it's an important point that I'm not sure is always received well. So I want to get on it a little bit. But so to finish up here, Mucus Lean, I had this little Spira's pizza replacement. Every once in a while, I'd get the vegan pizza kind of thing, one of those Amy's vegetable ones. I put a bunch of extra vegetables on it and sauce and stuff. And, so I did that a little bit. But what I ended up really getting into was I would get the wheat tortillas and put sauce on it, a bunch of vegetables, and then put that in the oven for like 10 minutes at 420 and seasonings. That was the key, putting this onion powder, garlic powder. I didn't use salt. I was able to get off of that early, but onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, put that in 10, 11 minutes, kind of watch it. You don't want it to burn, but it kind of come out nice. And I make 2 or 3 of those, big salad. And that would sort of be like my, that would take the place of the toast, and get that out and, kind of, cut it up into little pizza sections, little square, not squares, but the little triangles. And that was real beneficial. Bean burritos. That was, so the last fast food joint that I would mess with was Taco Bell. And this is early on. This is like the first year of practicing the diet. And I stopped going to all other fast food type of joints and restaurants, but I'd go to Taco Bell, and then I would veganize, so get like the bean burrito there and make sure, veganize it. And of course, every once in a while you get it, you open it up, and it's, it's got meat in it, or it's got like a little nibble of meat, it's because it's got the cross contamination, and you have to learn that lesson. When you're going down this, you once you get real serious, especially once you make that switch and you feel that, and really no longer want any of that meat residue, then that becomes pretty profound to you, and you're like, okay. So then from that, once I started really, really understanding that, then instead I was buying the little cans of refried. It was like the Taco Bell brand refried beans, which is not the cleanest because they got the canola oil and all that kind of stuff. But that's what I was using because I had that taste for that. And corn chips that's a bad addiction. If you don't, that was probably one of my worst addictions as far as like. That didn't take itself out. See, a lot of these things took themselves out because I couldn't really, once I got to a point where I wasn't processing them anymore or eliminating them well, then I would move on. But corn chips was one where I wasn't eliminating it well anymore, but I was still eating them. Nature Burger, there was this fantastic brand, Nature Burger. I used to crush those, make those up. And honestly, if you read the Mucusless Diet, where Eric talks about rice patties, like the cooked rice, where if you soak the rice, you drain off the mucus, then put them into patties and fry them. That the nature burger was sort of like that, is it had some rice flour in it. They had different flour. There was a lot of ingredients in it, but it was that kind of thing, and it eliminated okay. It didn't eliminate great, but it definitely hit the spot when I was really craving some mucus in those early years. So again, year 1 through 3, fasting mode. I only fasted about 10% of the time. I didn't fast that often. Early on when I'm just getting started. And again, there's some people, they try to fast a lot. They do a lot of fasting. But me, I only fasted about 10% of the time. And I did the methodology. Fruit juice is needed throughout the day. So my definition of that fasting was pretty much along the lines of Arnold Ehret. So I was doing green juices, but I didn't fast with green juices. My fasting was fruit juice. And when it deviated from that, it would be incorporating some the vegetable broth, making vegetable broth, or even buying some of that store-bought, like the organic vegetable broth type of stuff. And so, the simplicity. So there's not a whole lot to talk about here. What I should mention, though, even back to the other ones. So what I didn't put on there was when I was doing enemas. So I was doing distilled water and lemon juice enemas every day. And in that first 1 to 3 years, I was actually doing them often, like twice a day. I do them like kind of early in the morning, or when I would get up. And then I would also do it in the evening before bed. But sometimes I would just have to get it in where I could, and I might do it in the afternoon or whatever. And, and I did them in a public bathroom that locked, but right outside the door. And this is part of like the hardcore attitude that I'm talking about, where there's no, I don't want to hear excuses. There's not an excuse. People love excuses. That's where I'm hardcore, is there's no excuses. None. I did enemas. Right outside the door was a pool table with people playing, having fun. Almost every time I did an enema, somebody knocked on the door, and I'm laying on my side doing the enema, talking about, I'm in here, I'm gonna be in here a while. That's what it takes. I try to imbue some of that attitude over to you, because you need that. That's what I'm talking about when I say this is a warrior's path. You got to figure this out. It's not always going to be easy and be just given to you on a silver platter. You got to figure this out, but there's no excuses. None. No excuses. You got to make it work. Brother Air likes to talk. He was real impressed when I did an enema in a Starbucks bathroom in Chicago when we was out on a trip. And so, I won't get into that story, but I'm just saying that's the mentality. And that's the mentality that needs to be incorporated in Mucusless Diet Healing System. That's the type of, it's a different kind of hardcore than I'm going to be 100% raw. Woo. Having the attitude of, I'm not going to, if I need an enema, I'm not going to miss an enema because my family's in the other room. I'm going to go in the bed. I'm going to make my enema kit. I'm going to go in the bathroom. I'm going to turn on the shower. I'm going to lay on the floor, and I'm going to do the enema there. Or I'm going to go in my room. I'm going to go down to the camping supply store. I'm going to buy one of those luggable loos. I'll do my and I just thought of that now, but that's how that's the mentality. I'm showing you in real time how it would work. Because I know I hear that from people, and like, well, I live in a house with my family or multiple people, and it's kind of uncomfortable to do the enemas, and my bathroom's too small. And this, if you got a room, go get you a luggable loo. You're gonna have to invest in those. I mean, that's kind of expensive. Those little things, if that's how you do it. Actually, you wouldn't even have to invest, in the bags that go in the luggable loo, but you prepare your enema thing, go in your bedroom. Do it in there, and then dump it, go and dump it in the bath, whatever you need. I'm saying it's problem solving. The point is there's no excuse. I don't want to hear it, because I've heard all of them. I've heard, I'm living with my parents, I'm doing this, and my significant other, I'm traveling, I'm doing this. If this is important to you, if not having your intestines cut out is important to you, if not having colon cancer is important to you, if being able to not have daily headaches and coughing up phlegm and running around here with a mask on, worrying about catching something, if that's important to you, then you will figure out how to do it within the context of your life. There's no excuse. So this is years 4 through 10. So now years 4 through 10, my mucusless days are a lot more. I'm being 100% mucusless. I can say maybe a little out. I don't count the oil as much in this, but 50% of the time I'm not eating the processed patties. I'm not eating nuts and raisins. I'm not, 50% of the time I'm dealing with this, the juice or fruit in the morning, fruit in the afternoon, or Eric's 2-course meal, or juice only. Sometimes I was eating only one meal a day. And then in the evening, the combination salad with the steamed vegetables. So that's where we're saying with the cooked thing, cooked is just always a part. It's cooked mucus-free. It's a different concept. So you're not filling up on a lot of the nuts and seeds, that kind of stuff. You're the cooked, ate a lot of squash. The cooked squash, baked acorn squash, baked spaghetti squash, zucchini, summer squashes. Again, always with a big raw salad. All the steamed veg, all the different vegetables that you can steam, or the stir fries, all that kind of stuff. But I'll also say I was in these years I was doing more fasting, as we'll see, and so sometimes this evening meal would just be a juice. And so I have fruit at lunchtime and then just some juice in the evening. So this was, again, the more advanced mucusless days. I might have one meal of fruit in the afternoon and then have juice in the evening. So, but again, this is the mucusless day. And again, this is what most people would show you, because they try to show you the best of what they did. And they would leave out that when that day that they went and drank some kind of whatever, or they went someplace and they used to have a coffee addiction, so they went and drank some coffee. I mean, they leave that out. And I'm saying that, no, here we go. Here was me in my mucus lean days. But you start to see it's getting simpler. So it's not as complicated as it was years 1 through 3. Now we're, again, this is getting pretty standard, or it's either going to be fruit or juice. I wasn't eating, cereal in the morning anymore. I wasn't, that kind of stuff was out. It was either juice or some fruit. Lunch, Eric's 2-course meal, or this period I got pretty heavy into, the nuts and raisins. So this would have been store-bought roasted nuts that were salted. And, but I would have these big things of organic raisins, combine it with them. And I would get the mixed nuts oftentimes, either cashews or mixed nuts. And I don't want to hear about cashews aren't nuts or whatever. We're talking, how does it eliminate? That's really the proper taxonomy, is how it eliminates. And it eliminates like a nut. And so you want to combine it with raisins, as you would learn as you go through the Mucusless diet for the methodology. The supper, combination salad, steamed baked vegetables, onion saute, dressing, store-bought vinegar-free dressing. I kept that around for a while, those first 10 years where I deviated too much from that. Baked sweet potatoes were real big. The toasted wheat bread was still there. Nature burgers were less. They still, every once in a while, they would show up. And this is another concept of transition, is instead of, you can have certain things that you might eat once a year or twice a year. I got to the point by the end of the 10 years, I would maybe have a little nature burger period for a few days once a year. Think about that. That's what I always try to get across to people in terms of sophistication of transition. And so, the beans were still there. The 100% wheat spaghetti, which I didn't mention before, but that was still there. And that pizza replacement. So there was a few things. I ate a lot less of the you say I didn't put on here the soy burgers. I went periods of time, like a couple years, where I didn't touch them at all, and then maybe I had it once, like go back to it once, and then I kept going, but I didn't have it enough for it to be on here on this list. And so that's showing you I'm cutting things out, but they're being cut out slow over a long period of time, so that it's like permanent cutouts. And then years 4 through 10, fasting mode, 25%. This actually, I thought about this today. I probably could have. This is more like 30%. I think I fixed it on later in this presentation. But juices needed throughout the day, fresh and or certain store-bought juices. So so that's another thing. Was using so I have fresh juice, but I know this blasphemy for the juice people. I know, but sometimes there were certain store-bought juices that I would use. And Brother Air, we've sort of found a couple that we could use for the stimulation, because again, the concept, it wasn't about a nutrition concept. We didn't drink juice for nutrition. We're drinking for elimination. And the body, whether you use the fresh juice or you use store-bought something, or these people that are in the hospital and they're that can't eat solid food, and they're pumping them with dairy inshore that has whey in it, it's still a camouflage fast. It's still, even though it's not optimal, and it may even have mucus in it, like in the case of the inshore type of stuff, you are giving the body an opportunity to rest just by virtue of the liquid going in there. So that's what it is. I always recommend, and of course promote, the fresh juices and the juicing, and that's what. But to be honest, to give you the story, you got to understand store-bought juices is a part of the story. But again, there's certain ones that, it's not just any of them. There's certain ones that are way better than others. And if you got questions, I will let you guys do questions at the end. And if anybody, I'll open this up if somebody wants to come on here and talk with their video camera. So if you have a phone or video and you want to get that ready, I'm gonna open that up a little bit later on, and we'll see how that goes, that experiment. But mucusless day, 65% of the time. So this is year 11 through 15. So most of the time got mucusless days. It was a lot more simple. Either, again, I mean, this is pretty standard for the rest, no breakfast, fruit or juice in the morning. Fruit in the afternoon was very common. Or Eric's 2-course meal if I need a little bit more something, then that might be there. Combination salad and steamed vegetables or baked banana surprise. Now, this is around year 11 and 12. I was almost year 11. I was almost 100% raw. So that would be, so I did like 2 years where I did some pretty intense fast. I did like 6 months on fruit, because I kind of skipped over the long-term fasting that I did earlier, where I did 6-month long juice fast year after year. I won't talk about that because I'm not promoting that. I don't promote long-term fasting. If you fast long, you're on your own in terms of don't blame Eric or something like that. No one over here is telling you to do long-term fasting. We're telling you to practice the Mucusless Diet Healing System, the whole system, and nothing but the system. And so, so help you God. I got to finish that. And the baked banana surprise, that was still there. But I did, like I said, there was a couple years where 100% raw, and I got into what I call classical raw foodism, where you get into the soaked nuts and seeds, and was making, blending some of those things up and all that, so I lived that, so I wanted to check out those tools, see what that was about. And so, so they're tools. It's another mode. The raw mucus free is another mode, and raw mucus lean, but coming from that perspective, it's a total different thing, and it's just more tools in the toolbox if you understand that we have all of these different tools to check out. And that's, to me, fun. It's fun to try the different tools to see what they're going to do with the body, and what one tool does in year 5 might do something totally different in year 10, and so that's part of the practice. That's part of really getting in tune with yourself and understanding this whole process. Let's see. So a mucus lean day, year 11 through 15, a fruit or juice in the morning, average 2-course meal or nuts, the store-bought. So a lot of this, it's going to get a little repetitive. Combination salads, steamed vegetables. Now this is where I got away from the store-bought dressing, and I got into almost exclusively the lemon and oil, putting squeezing lemon on top, putting olive oil with it, and that was like my main dressing. If I felt like blending something up, I might get some vegetables and herbs and a little oil and blend that up in the blender. But that was, I'd gotten off of the store-bought stuff, and it took a long time. I mean, I'm sure people criticize me for that, like, man, you was on the store-bought for a long time. Yeah, I was. It was my part. That's my story. That was my transition. Let's see, the toasted wheat tortilla, nature burger bean. Nature burger. Well, yeah, I mean, the nature burger just only literally once a year, maybe in year 14 or something, and then they stopped selling them. And so that helped anyway. But I was off of the wheat spaghetti. I went back and I checked out that quinoa spaghetti, but I didn't eat a lot of that. I mean, it's like we say, 20. Yeah, that's the whole point of this. Only 20% of the time. So when I did eat the mucus lean, this was what was happening. It was only 20% of the time. It was very, very minimal in this particular period. Then fasting. I'm saying fasting 15% of the time. Might have been more than that when I look back in retrospect. But juices needed throughout the day, mostly fresh juices, mostly raw, mucus-free, with a lot of fruit juice fasting. So in these years, I didn't do any store-bought juice. This was all, when I did fast, it was all fresh juices without any question. And I do mention that, yeah, the years 11 through 13, I did a lot of raw mucus-free, a lot of fruit juice fasting. I was doing a lot of that in those years. And that's the years also when I got into the herbs. So I did the first 10 years, I used 0 herbs. I did no herbal formulas, none of that. Then year 11 through 13, I started getting into and checking out some of what herbs do. And I studied it very deeply. When I do study something, I get real deep into it. So I learned a lot about it. And I was, I was able to understand them from a perspective that I don't generally hear people talk about. And, I don't talk a lot about it on this channel. I do talk about it in one-on-one situations or coaching situations if I think somebody needs that particular tool. If I don't think someone needs that tool, I don't recommend it or I don't talk about it. So that's one reason I don't just talk about it all the time here, because most people with that, they get into where that's like the end all be all. They get so addicted to the herbs, the idea of them, and they put so much faith in this is it. This is what when there's a way more tools you need in your toolbox. That's one. That those herbs are like one tool. That animal bag is a tool. The soaked nuts are a tool. It's like you better have all these tools in here. But a lot of those folks don't. They don't know that they have all those tools at their disposal. They're very narrow, and they've only been exposed to a couple things. They've been exposed to this one thing, and that's it. And so I try to share this to just, if anything, just show there's more tools out here that are useful. But at the same time, there's a way, when you put them within the context of the Mucusless diet, there's a way to use those tools where you're not going to go way off into something very weird and some find yourself in these uh, strange places. You know, it's a different kind of thing. Let's see. Okay, so this is years to the 16 to the present. So mucusless days, I'm mostly mucus free. Yeah, 75% of the time, I will have either nothing. I'm dry a lot of mornings. I don't have anything until the afternoon, but sometimes I'll have fruit, and I'll still have fruit, or I have juice, or sometimes I just have water or something, or lemon water in the morning. You know, that's common. Fruit in the afternoon, and a raw combination salad in the evening. This is very common how I live. You know, it's pretty much. So if you want to know what I eat in a day now, this is what 75% of the time, this is what it looks like when I'm eating. My mucus lean days, about 15% of the time. I put the lemon water there, then fresh fruit or juice at lunchtime. And then the supper time, just a little bit more complicated with the combination salad with some lightly steamed kind of stuff, and lemon and grape seed or olive oil for the dressing, occasional vegan patty or some kind of homemade patty with a salad, or the occasional can of beans or something in there. Baked or air fried sweet potato. Kind of got into that air fried thing, and so because you do that without the oils, and so that's kind of cool. But baked or air fried sweet potatoes, and again, just 15% of the time. This is not all the time. This toasted almond flour tortillas. They're gluten free. I got into those pretty heavy in these little periods. But and that would take the place, instead of having the 100% wheat toast, I would do that. And so I went pretty long time without any wheat products for like several years, and then recently I messed with a little wheat just to see what would happen. And interestingly, my body handles it now a lot better than it used to. So that's another thing. It can be counterintuitive. There's certain things that you might not be able to physically tolerate in year 10. It's maybe a mucus forming item, but physically you get over some more humps and you might be able to go back to it, and it help you get over a different kind of hump. And so that's what I hope to teach in terms of understanding you can use these tools. Like, that's what they're for. And there's not a guilt thing. There shouldn't, I'm so happy that I've been able to come up into the mucusless diet with brother Air, and to not have that stigma of feeling guilty because what I'm eating, if it's not perfect, if it's not, I understand the transition. And so that guilty thing that I have to work with clients with constantly, because it's so embedded and so much a part of the dogma of the raw food dogma and things. It's like you get into this that. And I'm like, man, that guilty thing, that's, if you're in year 10 of the mucusless diet, and you're still eating pigs, or like you have the occasional pig, all right, feel guilty about that if you haven't got off the dead animal flesh yet, But if you're transitioning and you're off the animal stuff, and you're dealing with what you're dealing with, that guilt doesn't help anything. It's not a positive type of, it's not going to give you motivation. It's going to pull you down as soon as you allow that guilt to be there. And when that guilt's there, you're not accepting reality. That's part of the problem. And that's, you're in denial. There's a denial, there's a guilt, because you feel you should have done this thing that you couldn't do, and now you're mad, like you lost this game or something. And it shouldn't be like that. The part of the art of this, when you make this look good, is you just shift. I mean, sometimes before I crave mucus, I might eat a meal that has some mucus in it because I know it's coming. I head it off at the pass. Like, okay, all right, I've been in this mode a while. Let me go on ahead and let me get out the little vegan patty or whatever. I found there's some, I haven't done this like recently, but there in these 16 to 18, I was getting into these it's like there's all these new vegan patties that are way cleaner than 2003, where you look at the ingredients and they're like, there's almost nothing in them except just like vegetables and a little mucus to keep it together. And so, yeah, I got into a little bit of that. Let's see. So fasting mode. Now, again, I fast less now than I did in, years 10 through 15. And what I predict is like years 20 through 25, probably years 22 through 25, there's going to be I'll probably do significant amount of fasting. Don't hold me to that. I'm just saying if I'm honest about it and I'm looking into the future, I know where I'm feeling now, at year 18, I can predict that around year 22, there's going to be some impressive kind of fasting kind of stuff that I might get into. Maybe not. I might just stay in this groove. But if I know my body and I know the trajectory that I'm on, the work that I'm doing now and the eating that I'm doing now is going to result in doing some like serious, like fasting at very easy. Because that's the whole thing. It's supposed to be easy when you get to those higher levels. So for me, these are the eating years. Like I'm eating, I'm eating. And so, but I'm eating a lot of mucus-free. It's mostly mucus-free. Most of what I'm eating is mucus-free with, like I said, the occasional little patty of something or some little bean thing here or there or whatever. But yeah, I'm not doing a whole lot of fasting right now. But when I do, it's the classic Arid, 2 quarts of juice kind of fast. What I eat in a day. So takeaways and observations. So Mucusless days, the years 1 through 3, 30%. Then from years 4 to 10 went up to 50%. Years 11 to 15 up to 65%. And then in years 16 to 18, 75%. So over 2 decades, I went from where I would eat mucusless for 30% of the year to now I eat mucusless 75% of the year. Did I do it in 2 years? No. After 18 years, I'm almost 75% of what I eat is mucus-free. Mucus lean days. 60%. So years 1 through 3, 60% of the time was mucus lean. Years 4 through 10, 20% of the time was mucus lean. Years 11 through 15, 20% of the time mucus lean. And I don't know, I might update this. 4 through 5 was probably mucus lean more than that. Then 15% for years 16 through 18. So that's that. And just showing you this to get this concept of this trajectory, because this is like a concept that I always hint at, but I don't know if I'm ever being really clear about it. And so now we got a video now where there's very clarity on this, on like what this looks like in my case study. Brother Ayers is somewhat similar to this. If I was to do a case study of what I know of how he ate, it's different, but the overall trajectory is kind of similar. But he ate different mucus form, different mucus lean kind of things than I necessarily did. But the trajectory is kind of similar, and I noticed that with Takora, similar thing with the long-term Mucusless diet practitioners. Now, if we were to interview somebody that came in from a more raw foods kind of perspective, but we broke it down like this, their thing might be different, and they might be eating more mucus by year 20. Like they still have more mucus in their diet because they were more focused on getting rid of the cooked food. But if I'm eating raw mucus, that's cool, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying This is the Mucusless Diet Healing System methodology. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying to give you a comparative perspective. Fasting mode. So now I fast about the same amount now, and that's interesting. I fast about the same amount now that I did when I first started. But I did quite a bit of fasting, probably even more than 30% in these 4 to 10. But there was a couple years where I fasted 50% of the time as I was doing those long fasts. But I calculated the days on this. I probably have. I would almost say I could probably if I really sat down and updated these. I could probably could update these a little bit because the numbers would shift a little bit. I probably fasted a little bit more years 1 through 3 are probably more like 15% fasting in those first several years, and then then quite a bit in those years, and this is even probably more. This would maybe even be a little higher, 20% or more, because I know I'm definitely fasted more than that on years 11 and 12. But at the same time, I was also not necessarily, I was living, it was like the fruit diet period. So, and I don't really count that as a fast. And so that's one reason why this is only 15% there. But the mucusless days are pretty high because I was doing these grape cure kind of fasting periods and that kind of stuff. Grapes were great prices in those years, like 2012 and 11 and 2010. There was a lot of 99 cent a pound grapes, and so those were grape years, definitely. So that's the bird's eye view. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, please do not use any of this as a model. This discussion is not meant to be a model that you say, okay, well, this is what you were doing in those years. Let me try to do that these years. That's not how this is meant to be. This is meant to be an overall study, as is the way, the Mucusless diet, the case studies that are presented in there. Spira Speaks, the case studies that I put in that book. It's meant to deepen one's understanding of the principles of the Mucusless diet and put into proper perspective how long things can take, depending on your physiology, depending on your life, depending on your goals, is going to be different. But I want to show you what a realistic transition of somebody practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System methodology, what that looks like over time, because I don't see many videos of anybody, of the raw food people or I don't see anybody really talking like that and showing what that trajectory looks like. And you can see how, and there's plenty of people that are probably, I'll check the chat, and there's people I can go faster than that. Because one thing that happens is you can feel so good on different kinds of mucus-free, especially the fruit. You can feel as if you can eat like that forever. But physiologically, you're not there yet. And then when you hit the ceiling or the wall, you blame it on lack of nutrition, all the common things, instead of blaming it on the real problem, which was lack of transition, lack of being comfortable in a plateau point, dealing with these items, eating, having those mucus forming foods on your list that you might eat literally once a year, because that's a sophisticated transition. If you can eat something that maybe you ate a lot in years 1 and 2, but you only crave it and eat it one time a year by year 9 and 10, it's not 100% out of your diet, but think about how much better that is to eat it once a year than to be like, I'm never eating that again. And then you fall off the wagon. And I see it, I drive by Pizza Hut and see it, in the drive-thru. transition. That's, that's the point. And don't be guilty. Like, just work the system. Like, you do you. And that goes for, again, if you hardcore, like, man, I'm raw, this is what I'm doing, I'm never going back. I'm not telling you to eat like this. I'm saying that these are tools that are available for you or people that you might be in a position to help. Because people, your roommates, your mom and father, your grandparents, people, if you might not be able to, you're not going to persuade them with 100% raw. Because I wouldn't have been persuaded with that. If Brother Air would have came to me with 100% raw, dogmatic type of argument, that would have turned me off. I never would have got into to any of this. The mucusless diet rang so true to me. That was the game changer. It was like the principle of evolutional changes and slowly changing things over time. That made sense. That I could see that. I could envision that. That made sense. But these 100% all or nothing things, I never felt for that. I just never, because I already know that doesn't work. And over again, it doesn't work for so many people. And so, like I said, for years, we've been that pillow that so many people have fallen onto. We've been able to catch them. Because they were trying to be way too aggressive. They were eating I'm never eating nothing again. I'm fruit. I'm doing this 60-day water fast. I did this dry fast, and aggressive. Felt great for a couple days. All of a sudden, boom, hit the just like falling, about to hit the ground. And they saw one of our videos, or they're like, well, maybe I check out that Mucusless diet and see what that transition is about. And these are people that used to criticize us for talking about transition. And so, I mean, I don't get joy out of the I tell you so, because I don't want to say that. I hate saying that when it comes to this topic, because I want people to understand this stuff, understand this transition, and save yourself a lot of misery and suffering that's unnecessary. Because if you try out certain things transitionally and your body rejects it, then okay, well, I don't need this right now. My body, no one's telling you to forcing you to eat mucus lean. It's just understanding what's available to you when the stuff hits the fan, and it will. Unfortunately, I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean, you're going to have some days where these tools will be very, very useful for you. And if you have that all or nothing mentality, then you're going to have a very tough time being successful long term, and just living just being comfortable in your body, in your mind. It's unfortunate to me. So read the books. Mucusless Diet Healing System. We got the book bundle. We bundle all these together, one low price. You can get the digital version. You want the paperbacks, get the paperbacks. You can find the links down below for that. You can get the books and also get into the e-course. That's one path a lot of people take. Yeah, but definitely, don't just use this video to try to create your understanding of what you think the diet is based on this video. That's not what this video is for. Please read the Mucusless Diet book. If you have a problem with me, then don't read this version and read some other version that I don't have nothing to do with. If you're this far in the video, you probably are cool with me, but I'm just saying, in case some people don't, if they have a problem with me, it's like, fine. I want you to read I don't care if you read this version or you read another version. As a scholar, I'm an educator. I like seeing people read multiple versions and have fun comparing and contrasting. But let's read the book. Let's read the Mucusless Diet Healing System book, please. And and while you're at it, check out Rational Fasting and and all the other stuff that Eric wrote. It's all classic stuff. And some of these they're small books, but I'm telling you, it's condensed. There's some stuff in there. In all these little books, they look unassuming and like, oh, that's cute. Yeah, it's cute. It's cute, all right. Check it out. Be ready. So so that's my presentation on what I eat in a day on the Mucusless diet, which is really a case study of the past 18 years. And tried to be honest, tried to show you guys a little bit about what this really looks like, what the honest kind of way to transition. We talk about it a lot, but oftentimes I know it's a little bit more until you practice it or you really study some of the other materials we have. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's so I'm trying to like alleviate those questions as far as, and like I said, none of this means that you have to go as slow as me or that you have to go as fast as me. Take time out of this. Don't worry so much about the time. Worry about the principles, finding that plateau point, and then maybe you can map out some things, map out some goals or map out whatever, but focus on the trajectory of your now transition. What does, Eckhart always say, be in the now. What are you doing now? Don't worry about the future. You don't have to fixate on the past. The past can help inform you in terms of what on what your transition might look like. But deal with right now. Deal with what you're eating right now, and that's what we want to do. So I'm gonna visit the you guys over here in the chat, and my man Steve, what's going on, Steve? And Alpha says showing it right, and it says the e-course is great. And Steve also says that the e-course is great, and I appreciate that. Let's see. It doesn't tell me who the Facebook user is for some reason, but Facebook user says if you are over 40 years old when you begin to detox, then it takes years to cleanse your body. That's true. And Steve says, great way to break down the case study. Brady says this is extremely helpful. I'm glad. I'm very glad about that. Thank you for watching. And Alex says you're the man for breaking this all down by year. And so I appreciate everybody being on here. And let's see. Josh says Trader Joe's has unpasteurized OJ. That's pretty good. Yeah, and pro tip, the Trader Joe's unpasteurized. Well, they have the pasteurized pineapple juice, but it's changed over the past couple years. It's not as good as it was, but yeah, you find your little stuff. Like I said, but I didn't get into, as those are other discussions, I talked about kind of what I ate, but how I got those items. I got into wholesaling a lot, where I'm going to the wholesaler, getting boxes of oranges, boxes of apples, boxes of cucumbers and zucchini, and I'm getting things in bulk and saving a lot of money. Especially in those early days. See, Dory, hey, what's going on? How you doing? It's been a while. Been a while since I seen you. And my man Emoji King, what's going on? Then Angela asked, what about those with life-threatening diseases? Is there a way to heal that may take a more focused approach? So, in those cases, I always recommend, in really chronic cases, to work with somebody. I'm in the process of trying to put together educational things to train more people in what I know of Mucusless Diet Healing System centered methodology and coaching and consultation methodology. So if you're interested in that, just stay tuned, because I'll be announcing things, in the next, over this year. But you definitely recommend working with somebody. Now, with that said, when I'm working with someone that's there, I'm always using the transitional methodology, but depending on where they're at, you might be a little more aggressive right from the get-go. We might not take as much time, obviously, with certain transitional things. And that's, to me, is where Dr. Morris's methodology is great. Is when it's for people on their deathbeds, just honestly. And he's mentioned that in older videos, where he had said that, a lot of his, we're talking about people with the cancers and the real chronic illnesses. It's like, all right, we're not messing around, getting right at it. What has happened is people that don't have chronic illnesses are trying to use that same methodology, and they're sometimes get a little more than they bargained for, because it's aggressive as hell. It's like, it's aggressive methodologies. Now we have aggressive, because you can always be aggressive. That's what I try to tell you. It's like, you can always be more aggressive, but finding that middle ground, finding that space where you're really mucus free and you're able to sustain that's challenging. It's hard to get into that. But yeah, as far as folks that are really going through it, you do kind of focus that. And Eric talks about that as well, where you can get into some of those methodologies, where Eric's talking about the sanitarium process, and some of the kind of fasting and the things that he had people doing that might not go right in line with the main recommendations. But again, a skilled practitioner helping somebody in that case can be very, very beneficial and much needed. And I appreciate Eric. Thank you so much for the donation there, the super chat. He said, "What's my thoughts on pasteurized grape juice?" I used it early in my transition, but I'm not it's one of those things every once in a while, but I don't use it or find it like, I know some people get into using it and sort of fasting with it with a particular mindset of what it can do and should do and that kind of stuff. And I'm not really into that. But as far as just, if you're going to choose, if you have to go with some kind of pasteurized juice, if a high quality or like an organic grape juice can be good. The grape juice, if you can get not from concentrate pineapple juice, that's decent quality. Those are some of the kind of store-bought juices that you can get into. And great, Goddess says, great live stream. Thanks so much for the honest share, and I appreciate appreciate you all here. So maybe what I'll do, since I said I would, thank you, Nick. I'm gonna show, and I don't want to make this too much longer, but I will in the chat. I'm gonna put a link, and I'll invite, and I'll just take one or two people, or whoever the first couple people that show up. And if you guys have questions, we can chat about it, or if you just want to holler at me, and this is a recommendation from Brother Air, because he likes this. He said he liked this when we did this a couple weeks ago, where I invited people on. So if you have a video on your thing or whatever, you just want to pop up here, then we'll do a little bit of this chat. It's kind of like what people do on Instagram. You bring different people on and say what's up real quick. So I'm putting that in right now. Join the chat. Now, another thing that I have below, I won't talk about it too much, but we have an Indiegogo campaign right now for an album that we want to do with the Fire Music Project, Professor Spira and Brother Air Fire Music Project. And our goal is to make an album to reflect the times, to be an album of 2021. There's very few artists that we have found, or at least musicians that I know of, that are really making music to reflect these times and being real creative and reflecting back, being a time capsule of what is going on right now. And so I encourage you, if you got our back with that, there's some different gifts level that you can see on there, but there's a link for the Indiegogo campaign that you can check out, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in another broadcast. But so I'm assuming that the link works where you guys are at there. So I'll just leave that there, a few more minutes, and we'll talk. And if no one wants to get on, that is cool too. But when you click the link, you'll have to go through the little process, turn on your video camera, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the music, something that's just really needed right now. We don't have music that just reflects this time. It's like all the pop stuff is just there's very little consciousness, and a lot of it. A lot of the jazz and there's not kind of edgy revolutionary stuff that's really has a message behind it in the tradition. And so we hope to do that. That's where we're going to do that. And but we could really use your support, because it takes to do it right, to go in there. We're going in a studio. My friend is a Grammy nominated. Did he win? No, he's definitely was Grammy nominated recording artist, recording engineer. And so we're going to go in there and we're going to throw down. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so yeah, so if anybody has any last minute questions, I guess we kind of open the floor up here for a few minutes, or if you want to join in the chat, hit the little StreamYard thing, and we'll get you on here and have a little meetup. But yeah, that's definitely strange times. Somebody had asked, wanted to hear my thoughts on the vaccination, which I have a video on that already, or a couple of videos where I talk about that. But I'll just say my thoughts on the vaccination is I'm not getting one, and I don't give medical advice. So you do what you want to do. But for me, there's absolutely no upside to it, because it's not protecting. It's not going to protect me from it. I'll just put it in the first person. It's not going to protect me from getting it or not getting it, or getting it and then being near death. We've always, we've been made fun of and ridiculed and criticized for years for being too serious, for being too worrying about what we eat in our health. For years, we've been criticized and ridiculed. Now look at these folks out here. All of a sudden, you care about your health. All of a sudden, you're running around obedient as hell with a mask on, thinking that that's going to prevent you from getting your colon cancer and prevent you from your heart attack and your stroke, or drowning in the mucus of your lungs. That mouth, that face mask ain't gonna do that. Stopping eating pus and mucus forming foods, getting off of the meat and the dairy, getting into this transitional methodology, that's how you become immune to whatever it is, boogeyman, that you're scared of. You want health, you want to be immune, you want to, whatever it is you're scared of, you want to not be scared, then get your, as we say, clean that ass. 2021, get yourself together. Physiological liberation. There's pros and cons. It's a hard path, but I love not being scared of the boogeyman out here, because I know that's not how the body functions and operates. And if you want to be weak enough, you know, and then people say, well, there's people are dying. People are always dying. That's what we've been saying for years. People dying unnecessarily. 50,000 people a day die of heart disease. 25,000 people a day die of cancers. And that's their statistics. That's the CDC statistics. That seems quite a lot like a pandemic to me. 50,000 people die of heart disease, and their scientists have scientific documentation that suggests that eating certain kinds of meat causes cancer, promotes heart disease, promotes hypertension. I don't like to even talk up. Those words don't mean that much to me, because that's that medical disease stuff. But it's respected in their world. So in their world, eating meat with impunity is bad even in their world, even in pus and mucus medical science world. So what are you doing? People are out here eating, like finding out ways to eat with a face mask on. And I got to show these stupid images again. I know we did it before, but this just gets on my nerves. Look at this nuttiness. People, we got the double how to eat while wearing a mask. I mean, what's this do? It's buffoonery. Total idiocy. And then of course your boy here with the eating, I mean, just looks like a plate full of pus. But he's safe, he's social distanced, and he's got his face mask on that allows him to eat. And as he opens his jaw, the face mask goes up. See, I mean, this is straight bizarro world on a whole other level. Like we always talk about that, you know, bizarro world. Yeah, look at keep calm, be safe. Well, he's got to keep calm and eat bacon face mask. So we already know what's going on here. The tragedy of nutrition is that when he starts going through the colon cancer, when he starts going through the heart disease, when he starts going through a stroke or his third or fourth stroke, I was gonna say it was genetics. You know, my mother, my father died of stroke and a heart attack. It's just in my genes. There was nothing that I could do about it. The tragedy of nutrition is the belief that you can't do anything about your health, that you are fated to die a horrible, painful death, when in actuality, the thing that they say is okay to eat, the thing that they say you should eat, it's nutritional to eat, you got to get it, is the very thing that not only kills you, but puts you in crippling pain before it kills you. That's a tragedy that of of Greek proportion. That's some real tragedy. The pus tragedy. Kind of weird. Oh, there's a zipper on it. Kind of nuttiness. They got a little zipper, thinking that's cute. That's silly. And I saw today the musicians. Let's see. Wearing masks. Musicians wearing masks. Yeah, this stuff where they come on now. Totally insane. Face mask. You're trying to play a wind instrument. You got the face mask on. I mean, sometimes that can be used as a mute, but I bet he's not meaning to use that as a little jazz mute. He's using that as a face mask for the end of the instrument. And where's the one where the entire saxophone was like covered? Let's see if that comes up. Let's see. It might not have made its way because it seems like it's a new image. It might not have made its way here yet. But yeah, this is in a bag. He's playing a clarinet into a bag. Oh, you can buy these. Purchase United Sound. Oh. Yeah, these bags that you play music through the bag. It's a mask for your instrument. And they're showing you. Oh, they're showing people how to make their own. I guess. I mean, and my point is, if health was that important, if it was, if not dying and not dying painfully was as important, like you're willing to look that goofy and do something that stupid because you think it might help you not die, but you refuse to consider putting down the pork chop that has been proven in their world, in them, making the distinction between us and the medical mafia. In their world, your pork chop has been deemed to be problematic. You always use the word may cause cancer, may cause hypertension, may cause whatever list, whatever you want to get into, may do it. And yeah, these bags over here. I mean, this is ridiculous. Pure insanity. Pure unadulterated insanity. what we say? This is what it looks like when you lose. I mean, they're just. I can't believe they're just this happened. They're just going into this with these little face masks with openings so you can play your instrument, and then you go just to go out there to play. I mean, this is so insane, just straight bizarro world. Wow. That is fascinating. Yeah, so one of the things with the Fire Music Project, so that's part of what we're going to, we're definitely going to be talking about this within the context of the art. And so one of the, I've been coming up with names of songs, and one of the songs I'm going to name Pusdemic. It's a Pusdemic. And there's a number, I should find my list of titles to show you guys, but yeah, this is insane. Pure insanity. And okay, we got Alicia says, thank you for the inspiration. Well, thank you for watching. And I am a healthcare worker and I'm not getting the vaccine. Well, and bravo. Because yeah, we talked about that in the other video where for people that's on this path, on the mucus-free path, it can be dangerous messing with these vaccines, more dangerous than the average person, because you don't have that buffer. It's like all that the buffer, Burger King buffer that most people have, the average person has. You don't have that, that poison buffer. And so yeah, we got another healthcare worker that's not messing around with the poison shots that he said have no upside. We did that the last time. I won't get into the ingredients of, not only the ingredients of the vaccine, which has the tissue, human tissue and all that in it. But the fact that even in its documentation, it says this might not work. You might get this stuff. It might be side effects. It might be painful. It might not be good. But at the same time, it might not work. And what's all these other strains? New strains of COVID that's causing them to maybe shut down different. I think UK, they're talking about shutting that down a little bit. And so here we go. We got at least one COVID-19 vaccine is ineffective against new strains of the virus. And we had said this a long time ago. It's gonna be COVID 25, COVID 76. There's gonna be all the COVIDs, all the different strains, and they'll name it other stuff. There'll be, of course, they're gonna have to name an African one, because we gotta dishevel Africa. So they'll be like, the Africa coronavirus or something. That'll be one of them. They'll do maybe, they'll have maybe one Russian one. I mean, they're going to have, every place will have their own. And it'll just be like, well, the current vaccine you're taking doesn't help you with this one, but we're working on a new vaccine that'll help. And before you know it, you're getting like 19 shots or 20 shots, and they're not letting you on the plane until you get your shots. Is this the world that you want to live in? If you say no, then what you going to do about it? Or what are we going to do about it? Because that's going to be how it goes down. And what we can do about it when we come together and we're educated, and we have at the foundation that we're practicing the Mucusless diet. That's where we can, do some things and be able to protect ourselves and put things in place where we can create our own world and our own reality, our own nation, create our own, and leave all of that to them. Leave all of the, new virus strain can destroy the progress and gains against the pandemic. I mean, they're playing us like a fiddle, and they're playing. A lot of people are going for it. They're going for the okie dokie doke, just living in such fear. And I just feel pity for these people, because to see people that otherwise are so macho or so fearless, to see them cower in the corner for something as inconsequential. And these are the same people that would cower in the corner if they were forced to give up their meat. So they're not that fearless, believe me. But this is, like I said, you can go to our old videos, and way a year ago, when all this stuff started, I was talking about this, where because everybody was so hopeful and they got so into the vaccine and it's coming faster and we get the vaccine, we'll be able to go back to normal. I mean, people want to go back to normal. There's no normal anymore. There's nothing to go back to. There's not a pus and mucus type of world. This is over. We're done. This is it. We got to start the new thing now. That's going to kill itself. This world is going to take itself out. But we got to create the new human reality. And that sounds all like lofty or whatever. Like, no, I mean, it's just the reality of it. It might be 10 of us. It might be 10,000 of us, but it's going to be us, and it's going to be us getting out of the way of them. Like I say, we let them go. Go ahead. Go do your thing. and we're going to be over here peaceful, doing our thing. And you do you, we'll do us kind of thing. I mean, that's going to have to be where it is. Kent, this is, I guess, the UK stuff. The news, what are the symptoms? The symptoms are going to be the same. I mean, it's like the symptoms are like cold and flu-like symptoms. Elimination. And let's see, shots. We got a different shot for each agenda. Lynn says, my daughter has 7 children, 2 to 20, and no stabs in any of them. That's beautiful. Cicely says, I like the idea of building a new reality. Most definitely. And well, thank you for tuning in. Most definitely. Yeah, it's been fun. The UK shut down. I don't know how long ago, but I guess this was where it imposes harsh new measures. Where I know the UK was just going through it. Yeah, I remember when that happened. It's deep. And then we got the anal swab. Can't miss that. Oh, this is pleasant. So this is how they do the anal swab. And if you don't know, in China, they either were considering or they have already mandated that from now on, everybody has to get the anal swabbed testing for the COVID-19 testing. So there's that. And it's like, do I not? I don't have a choice. Is that I have to get it like that? You can't just do something else. Like no. But turn around, back, bend over. Let's go. It's yeah. I mean, it's what can you say? I mean, it's just it's over, and this thing is over. They've exposed the. Yeah, I'm good on that. I do my enema. I do my lemon juice and still water enema, but I'm good on all this. The self-administered thing. It's like, it's ridiculous. Okay, my man Nick.
I do my enema.
What's going on, Nick? What's going on?
Hey, can you hear me? I was just muting the stream, so I wasn't double chiming there. Yeah. I thought I'd hop on and talk about some of the lessons I've learned. After having kind of realized the selective eyes that I had the first time I read through the book, and really looking at the transition menu and stuff like that. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, one of the things, like I said, having that selective kind of reading when you go through this. I know you've touched on the fact that you can always be aggressive, but getting into that groove is really where you want to be. And so I had gotten a list of things to potentially talk about. I know you've talked about how you can see this practice through the lens of like an art form or an athlete or a craftsman.
Right.
And I was going to kind of
introduce yourself to everybody, like tell them kind of.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. The diet, all that kind of thing.
Word. Yeah, my name is Nick. I've been on the plant-based kind of journey for around 5 years. And I'd say, although I was getting into the philosophy and all the teachings of Erit, I really started embracing this stuff fully like 3-4 months ago. Erit.
Yeah.
But halfway through 2020, when I was letting all of this hysteria kind of pull me down, I was thinking, all right, it's time to get back in the saddle, and started using fasting and more rational fasting to kind of pull myself back up. And I live in Texas. We have a cold front, so I have a whole new found respect for all the people in the north going through it up there and still sticking it out. But yeah, it's been about, I'd say, 2 years of pretty focused, intentional eating and lots of juicing. I cut out dairy, eggs, and cheese before I cut out meat. And I cut out meat in 2016 as I wrapped up my track and field career in college. So I have had that elite level athletics experience that it is cool to take that discipline and then apply it to, I guess, like a slower paced, like more progressive practice with this thing, because it's definitely that nature's mills grind slow but sure idea.
Right.
And slow and steady is kind of the way that I've found. You want to use, you could go from white rice to basmati rice to brown rice to cauliflower rice to quinoa, and really applying the transition is awesome. And so, yeah, I've thought about all that, and I think it was maybe 10 minutes ago when you were just talking about all of the different books and how a lot of them look real cute, but Thus Speaketh the Stomach has been one that I've really been sinking my teeth into, and it's always so profound. And I mean, you can see I've worn this thing out. Like it's, I use it all the time now. And as I was getting ahead of myself there at the beginning, I went through and made this zucchini italiane, he calls it. And it's just zucchini, tomato, red onion, and garlic. And he's got a lot more complex recipes too.
Right.
And then he's got the grape lemon water, So I think in a podcast maybe 3 weeks ago I did with a friend, I pointed out how this thing is so cool because no matter your budget, your environment, your individual circumstances, you can work forward at whatever speed you want. And I think that's the beauty of it, because I think it was on the last Unleashed video you had a guest on, and they were talking about veganism and kind of moving people that way, which is great. I mean, needless suffering is kind of frustrating to see, but at the same time, you pointed out the loads of case studies that you have of these people that really care about animals, but they start eating them again.
Right.
In fact, I don't know where I put my cowboy boots, but I bought some cowboy boots when I was telling you guys I was working at the horse ranch, and I had a buddy, no judgment, but they voiced their opinion on the leather, and 3-4 months later, they were back to eating the animal. So it's one of those things that I've heard you call it a safety net or a pillow that people are falling on, and it's awesome work that we're all doing, and I'm glad to be able to plug into the community. So
and Nick is part of the Mucus-free life research and development team. We started that almost a year ago now with the original members of it, and just been building it up, and we got some secret projects going on and some real serious research going on in there, and appreciate Nick's contribution most definitely in on the team. And but yeah, it's deep. That's all I can say. It's like it's deep, and it gets deeper and deeper. But that is just the nature of this path and the Mucusless diet. I mean, from the first time of reading the book, like, whoa, this is Pandora's box. This is a key to something else. And that a lot of it you don't understand yet, but that there's something here, and you start practicing it. You do what you can, and you read the book again, and it's like, whoa, this is deeper than I thought it was the first time I read it. And then you don't think it can get any deeper, and you read it a third time, and oh no, this got way crazy and deeper. It's like every time it's just deeper and deeper, and it's that missing link for humanity right now. For whatever reason, that's the thing that we got so disconnected from, where we can be real sophisticated on a lot of other things and building stuff and engineering and all kinds of stuff. But when it comes to this, when it's something that's real simple, but that addiction is involved, that those generations of improper eating are involved. It's a problem.
No doubt. Yeah, like you said, each time you go back and read through, you pull out, even if it's just a small nuance. Like one of the things I found in rational fasting, he was talking about that opera singer who was having issues, and
right.
The section on hair. Yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, I constantly hear, and I almost want to like shout for you, and it's like, embrace the transition, embrace the system, because I hear and I was guilty of it too for the longest. It's that restrictive or that extreme approach that you want to take.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning when I joined, that's why I was going into seeing this thing through the lens of like in a high level artist or an athlete or something like that, because for me, I got to teach kids to ski last winter, and kids want to go fast, right? But we're constantly telling them, if you can't go slow, you're not going to have fun going fast.
Yeah, they don't have the coordination yet.
Yeah, it is that same kind of concept. And I mean, I kind of wrote down in a note, you'll have that desire to run with it at the beginning, and that can be okay, but you're probably going to look back and see a lot of room for improvement. So for me, that's why, especially after hearing Wolfgang talk about how he had kind of really tuned in and, just looking at things one day at a time and utilizing some of the more mucus lean recipes. It's kind of dropping that restrictive mentality that you can get in whatever circle you might find yourself in when you're first introduced to all this stuff. And another thing I heard you say not long ago was how you like to talk about things retrospectively. And I guess that's just a good way to not put so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And then,
because you have a chance to process. I do a lot of reflecting and contemplating as just a part of my life and sort of how I operate. And that deep thought, I don't know who, a lot of people promoting that. I hope people are, but having that time, a lot of people it's like people promote all the physical stuff. It's like, oh, I'm working out, I'm juicing, I'm doing, and it's all, that's good. But where's the people promoting, the contemplation, because that's different from just your standard, people love the yoga and the doing the physical stuff, but just sitting and contemplating like the wall, like what's this wall for? What's this? How did mucus get this wall up? Because mucus put this wall up. It's like but you go on these little thought journeys, and when you do, and you can take any topic, but especially when you're doing it with the food, you're doing it with culture or music or art, it's like going on these journeys, and that it just opens you up, and totally just mentally it opens you up, so it allows your perception to just get so much more enhanced. And so so that's why I like to share, instead of sharing exactly what I'm doing in the moment, like is what is popular. The people, if I had a channel where I'm like, every day I'm like, this is what I'm eating today, and I cook this and that, like, yeah, it'd be popular, I'd get a lot more views, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to come out with an educational kind of standpoint, and you
Sure.
can only get that from the contemplation and analysis, like looking back and like, okay, why didn't that work? That worked. Why did that work? And that kind of thing. And you get all that information together, and then move forward. Then you're kind of empowered by that wisdom of your experience. But if you don't give yourself a chance to have those experiences and then meditate on them, then you're not going to have that consciousness.
Sure. No doubt. Yeah. And it's one of those things you get more clarity on as you go through. And yeah, I guess it's been amazing for me, and also very comforting to know that, like I said, if you have that desire to run with it, I mean, go ahead, but just, I guess, keep in mind, like, all of the things that you've done in your life. Like for me, track and field, you work out differently in the off season than you do at the peak height of competition.
Right.
So there's all different types of lenses you can see it through. But yeah, just talking to a few of the other practitioners and realizing that you don't have to live on like grape and lemon juice. You can incorporate all kinds of like the stuffed onion recipes. And
yeah,
I mean, that's something that I've been preaching to people pretty hard, is these awesome recipes in the book. And the fact that that will help the mucus serpent come out, that will help that plaque come out. You don't have to be stuck on these psyllium husk powders and all that kind of stuff.
No, because I didn't use any of that stuff the first 10 years, because I didn't do any herbs or nothing. And the majority of my mucoid plaque came out in the first 10 years, of that kind of, all that old nasty black stuff. Yeah, it wasn't no psyllium husk. That was straight slime from uneliminated foods,
Man, yeah. And from my track and field experience, and I was actually fortunate enough to run at Baylor, and the head coach had been responsible for probably 10 gold medalists. And he talked to us about how even going into the ice baths, it can kind of, I mean, your body doesn't do all that same recovery process when you utilize the ice bath.
Right.
So I try to keep that in mind, even hearing Brother Enema or Brother Air talk about how he went, by request, he started experimenting with no enemas. And it's another thing that just kind of seeing it through a lens of, somebody who's just like an expert at a craft, or, Eric talks about the formula of vitality, like seeing your body like a mechanic.
Right.
And it's good to be able to use the philosophy and the recipes to be able to slow yourself down and just go slow and steady, because at one point you will be able to really know that now I can go the distance if I feel like that's where I'm at in my journey. Because I know, whether it was just the fact that maybe the straw had finally broken the camel's back for a lot of people, or 2020 was just hysterical. I think a lot of people just were feeding off of this go hard or go home mentality, which we can all appreciate, but it can get frustrating on some of these groups, seeing 9 times out of 10 people say, eat more fruit, grapes, berries, melons, water.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly teaching even just the simple idea of a broom salad, adding some steamed peas and carrots to a salad. Like, I'm sure there's some people that are still too hooked into a raw mentality to embrace that. And it makes me makes me kind of fearful, but at the same time, people have their own journey, and just keep trekking along and preaching the system and the practice and the transition.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a question here from Hestia. Does anyone know if Spira has done any video about organic and inorganic food? I should do maybe like a standalone video on that. I don't have any videos titled that, but I talk about that in a number of videos, or some videos where I talk about my favorite foods. And I'm pretty sure I talk about it, but it's not a lot for me to talk about because I kind of come at it at a pretty simple follow up, a pretty simple approach to it. Now I have we'll see what Nick does, but for me, so in the early days, I didn't use much organic at all. One, because it wasn't available yet. So in 2002 and 2003, like the supermarket had a very small little thing of organic stuff, like a bag of apples was $10 or something, and they tasted terrible. All of the organic tasted terrible. It was always like rotten and wilted and stuff, and so that just wasn't something that was available. So for the first years of my practice in Mucusless diet, I used very little organic produce. So it is what it is. As the years went on, the price of organic went down, the availability of it increased, and so I started to shift to where I would, as much as possible, if it had open, if its skin was open, if I'm eating its skin and it's open to the pesticides, then I would, as much as possible, purchase organic, especially for those. But if it had a closed skin, I didn't worry about it as much. So things like the watermelons and the oranges and that kind of stuff. Sometimes I would get the organic, but it wasn't. I didn't push myself to get it if I couldn't afford it or whatever, or couldn't find it. Because then also still sometimes, here's organic here and the conventional, and the organic tastes terrible. So it's like I kind of follow the taste. So if I know that this if I know that this over here is really sweet and tastes good, I'm gonna go with that, especially if it has a cover on it. But there's so things that at this point I mostly get organic is I try to get mostly organic lemons because when I do my enemas with the lemon juice and distilled water enemas, I juice the rind and all. And so if I have inorganic lemons and I cut the rind off around the edges before I juice it. But yeah, so that's kind of my approach as far as the organic, inorganic. I get as much organic as I can that I can afford, that I can find when it's available. Most of my green leaves are all, at this point, are all organic. Most of my vegetables are all organic because that stuff is just so, they drown it. And it was maybe 10 or 11 years into practicing the diet where I could feel the negative effects of the pesticides, to where it would actually, I was sensitive enough where I could kind of get some anxiety, and and I was able to tell, wait a minute, so if I eat this non-organic, I feel this like immediately. It's like this kind of anxiety, but if I have the organic, that's not there. So I had to kind of go through that before I started to be like, okay, well, I'm definitely going to have organic on some stuff, zucchini, cucumbers, try to get the cucumbers don't have all the wax all on it and all that kind of weirdness. And so that's me. Well, what about you, Nick? How you deal with that?
Definitely. Yeah, it's interesting thinking about how things were in 02 back when.
Right.
But yeah, for me, I went with the Green Star with my juicer a few years ago. So I was always into the herbs and just throwing down a ton of cilantro and parsley.
Mm-hmm.
I said brother enema and cilantro. But yeah, leafy greens, I opt organic. And like you said, if it has a rind or a skin, I will go non-organic. And the other funny thing is, I think maybe once or twice even with a bunch of the Asian grocers in the Dallas area, it's really hard to find organic and seeded grapes or organic and seeded watermelon.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot of times there's compromise that you can make.
Right.
And I think I've seen some.
Well, that made me think of, even Dr. Morris says, like, if you're getting grapes, even if they're seedless and they're not organic, they still have more electrical power in them, for the cleansing process, that you're better off just getting them and cleaning them off and dealing with them, if that's all you have available. And because some people, again, it's all or nothing thing. And it's kind of like, well, you got to get all organic. And if you don't get all, then you might as well just go eat meat. Like, where does that come from? Like, what kind of logic is that? It's like, there's even non-organic produce is going to be way better than the most free-range organic piece of pus,
Right. Yeah, and that reminds me, because I was in somebody's live stream just trying to plant some seeds, talking about who knows what. But anyhow, somebody made that objection. They said, well, what about all the pesticides? And this is a funny thing, because I remember one of my track teammates brought up this cultural thing about, oh, you guys don't wash your chicken? And then some people are like, well, we cook it and the bacteria gets cooked off. And so people will either, opt for meat because your produce has stuff, or, it's like, you don't think if you're cooking off bacteria or soaking it off, you couldn't use some apple cider vinegar, or I know people use lime and lemon juice to soak their vegetables too, baking soda. There's some pretty powerful things you can soak your produce with.
Get into that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of don't, like, but I encourage people, if you into that, do it. I'm so, because I'm the opposite of a germaphobe. So I'm not scared of germs. So I've never really been one to clean my stuff the way you're supposed to. I'm like, I might run, it doesn't do nothing. I might run it underwater or something, or, get the dirt off of it if there's some dirt in the thing. But yeah, I've done that a couple times where I would do like lemon, baking soda and lemon or something, and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I was just kind of like, well, if you're not going to get rid of the stuff that's in it, if it has been exposed to the pesticide, you're not going to get it out of there. And so, but good point. I mean, but encourage people to clean if they want to, do the
there's definitely a balance to strike there, and it kind of depends on where you're at. I know I've seen some people, and I asked a buddy who's real into oranges, a bunch of people soaking their oranges, and I was like, am I missing something here?
Right.
And he was like, well, that's not what I do, but to each their own.
Well, when you cut it, you might hit the outside. I'm like, that's a lot of work.
Right.
Deal with that.
Yeah. But then, I mean, another interesting thing is sometimes I'll buy organic cucumbers and maybe sit the last couple in the fridge for a little too long, and I'll peel it just because they'll get a little soggy. So I'll peel it and then I'll juice it, or I'll make them into cucumber noodles. And so, there's little things that once you get into the practice, you'll kind of find what works for you. And that's cool that you were able to tell that you were feeling a little bit of that, maybe the non-organic stuff affected you. So that's probably part of the transition for, wherever you're at as well. Because that selective reading, again, I saw even from a, COVID 2021, whatever we're coming up on, I know everybody's selling those MRE packs. So it's like, he talks about canned food in here, and at least having food stores, it's like, the perspective.
I didn't mention that, but I did. There was certain canned things that I use. I mean, I talked about the beans, and I just use canned beans, like the canned organic beans. I didn't get into soaking beans and all that stuff. I just didn't do that.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's definitely, and I have my little, my stuff that's in there, my preparedness stuff.
Nice.
And so yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. And that's something I want to talk to the other practitioners about. Like I actually bought some watermelon seeds that I think it's called maybe a Christmas variety, because you harvest it and it's supposed to store until, deep into the winter.
Oh, okay.
But there are a lot of those winter squashes that'll stay good for so long. And um, I guess it's funny, a lot of the objections people have about, oh, well, eating plant-based or mucusless or vegan isn't really sustainable unless, you have access to stores. And it's like, well, yeah, you can
Again,
you can
like I
go
was
pull
talking
out
about
your
the
hunting
excuses.
tools. And what was
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's like I was talking about before, the excuses. Everybody has these excuses, and I just never thought like that. I can't. It's hard. It's kind of hard for me to relate to some of that type of mentality, and as part of when people work with me, that's kind of what they. I guess that's kind of what they pay me for, to help with that, because it's like they can bring up anything, and my mind starts to like a computer come up with solutions immediately. Like it's like, okay, well, you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. It's all about solutions, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's and there's, I guess there's all kinds of books on that kind of stuff, but whatever, however you get there, it's better to just be solution oriented, and to uh, when there's a challenge, to sort of take that challenge head on, take that struggle head on, and don't be scared of it or run from it. Just be like, okay, here's this, let's deal with this,
Definitely. Yeah, and that's another good thing about really getting familiar with the book and just the concepts and rational fasting and all that good stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. So man, it was great having you on here. And
Yeah, thanks for letting me come on.
yeah, man, and yeah, we'll do this again, and yeah, get you back on here, and some of the other members of the research and development team, get a little research and development team meetup on one of these.
Cool.
That might be fun. But yeah, do you have any last? I don't know if you had another thought you were going to share, or any kind of last words for the leave with the folks.
I could. Yeah, I had probably won't need to find it in the book, but I know when he talks about his standard menu plan
Uh-huh.
at his sanitarium,
Uh-huh.
he has the standard menu, and he points out that there are additional, protocols for people with more like chronic cases or,
Right.
unique circumstances. And so it's like, again, if you have some sort of really crazy situation, or your budget's tight, or you're living way up north, there's always a way
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
Now, if you're forcing some restrictive sort of paradigm onto it, that might not be as easy, but
Right.
that's why I guess you keep using that pillow concept.
Yeah. Because he also really demonstrates the creative mindset that goes with this path, which is why we always keep telling people to read the book, because it's hard to teach that. You can't really, you can sort of show examples of the mindset of other people and point it out, but what comes to my mind there, that's based on kind of what you said, was he talks about one case study where it was someone that he had fasted them, fasting didn't help, and didn't really cure them, eating properly. He basically had tried everything that he could, and they still had problems. So through his creative mindset along this path, he's like, okay, what if I juice some lemons and chop up the lemon rind and add a little honey to it, put it in a drink, and have them drink that down, and let's see what that does. And that was the thing that broke all that dross, all that mucus or whatever it was. It broke that down, and that helped heal that person in that case. So he's demonstrating a creative way to think that's within the confines of the principles, uh, and yet it's still totally creative, you know. And then what I did, so I built on that creativity when I started doing the lemon juice and distilled water enemas with the rind. I was inspired by that story, but I totally changed the context of it. But I'm like, okay, well, if he did the rind there as a really aggressive, what if I did the rind and put that in the enema bag, you know,
Yeah.
and also as a way to save money, because 1 or 2 lemons with the rind on it, juiced like that, is equivalent to like 6 or 7 in the citrus juicer. So it was all upside to me. It was like, well, if I don't want to be too aggressive, I just juice 1 or 2 of them, but then, you know, be more aggressive. Let's get, 4, 5, 6, I mean, I got way out there with it, but that's the kind of aggressive we are. When we start talking about, we're not like, all right, 100% raw for the next 20 years, but you might hear us talk about, well, I did a 20 lemon enema yesterday, 20 lemons with, with the rind, held for 20 minutes, like that's our kind of hardcore, it's like that type of thing. I'm not recommending people do that. I'm just saying those are the kind of conversations me and Brother Air have on the phone, but in the way that our mind kind of works with that kind of thing. But we know when to experiment with something like that and you hit the gas. And like I said, just sometimes when you're cruising, just cruise with it. You don't always have to be pushing. You don't always have to be fasting. Enjoy those plateaus, enjoy that stuff, and that the way those different levels of this.
Totally. Yeah, that was going to be what I wrapped up on. Is it is really comforting when you start to enjoy it, because it's not like a false sense of comfort, and that you're still going to be moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome to be able to enjoy the process and just kind of stick through the transitional philosophy.
Yeah, most definitely. There's one follow-up question that was about the putting the vegetables in the bicarbonate, that it removes pesticides like from inside it. I mean, I don't believe that. I'll defer to Nick. You might know more about the bicarbonate stuff than me. I can't imagine because look at the way that you have an apple, and then imagine how they douse this stuff with the pesticide. You're not gonna suck that pesticide out with anything, it's in there, the bicarbonate. I mean, I don't see that unless there's like a chemical reaction that's magical, that it's only gonna, it's only knows to get the pesticide out and not the juice or something, but I don't, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. It depends. I was trying to look at these apples I bought, organic apples, and you can feel even a little bit of waxiness, and I let them soak for a long time and then really tried to dry them off. But, some days people might not have the time for that, or people, so if it makes you feel better, if it's something that because you can't get organic, you need to take that extra time. Yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of, but can't stress out about it too much.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, again, it's about that elimination, and because it's only going through, and so just do the best you can, get what you can, and let that elimination do its thing.
Totally. Yeah. On that note too, I actually got a good book. Just found it I found it for free. It talks about distilled water leaching minerals from your body. That could be a huge rabbit hole, but it essentially talks about how people voice concerns about plastic. But if that plastic gets into the water, it's going to stay in the water, like you said, as it eliminates. So it's not like it's going to come out of the water and sit in your body. So
get in your tissue system. Yeah.
Probably the same sort of concept with any of these pesticides, but obviously it is good to be cognizant of it, and it's part of people's transition too.
Yeah.
going to wholesalers or going to the farmers market.
Farmer
That's actually
market.
something I meant to talk about when it came to organic is a lot of these farmers would say, well, we're not certified organic, but they would look at you in the eye and like, you can learn.
Yeah. And because like here you can go to the wholesaler, and the wholesaler has deals with Amish, and so Amish don't have US certified, but they grow it organically, and
Totally.
and they have great prices on. I mean, you can get all kinds of cases of stuff when their stuff is in season. Their vegetables, their fruit, if they're dealing. I mean, I know a lot of fruit, but they'll might have apples and stuff. And but yeah, definitely getting the Amish stuff, and that's part of the problem solving as you really start to work with it. So yeah, you start with the supermarket, but then do a search for local wholesalers. Go to the farmers markets and really talk with the farmers. Don't just go and like, okay, let me buy this. Like, hey, strike up a conversation and be like, hey, I practice this diet and I eat a lot of produce. And what's your thoughts? Or maybe we can have a little deal or something, that kind of thing. Before you know it, I mean, we have people in the camp that'll do stuff like, those go strike up conversations with farmers. Before they know it, they're doing like a co-op, like go work once a week on the farm and get free produce for that week. I mean, that happens, and so you just solutions, open up when you open yourself up and you really give yourself to the path. When you stop resisting it, because as long as you're in that resistance and you're trying, because some people try to, it's like they want to try to control what part of the diet is okay for them at this time. And so they're like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I can change a little bit of my diet, but I'm not ready for the social stuff yet, or I'm not ready for this or that. And again, when I'm talking about the aggressiveness, I'm pushing you to not transition on that stuff. Like when it comes to the psychological stuff, the social stuff, you got to find a way to pump yourself up and get into that hardcore mentality and leave that behind, because it's, and I know not everybody can, but my message is that for that, like I'm not going to backpedal on that, because it's just, we just don't have time. We don't have the luxury of time to be messing around, because people are dying, and they're dying younger and younger. These ailments are getting harder to deal with, more complicated. It makes it harder to heal from them. Stuff that you could have easily healed from back in the day, now it takes longer. It's more painful. It's more complicated, and so we don't have time to mess around now. So the those type of excuses of, well, my family and my friends and that kind of stuff, like, it's later for that. We don't got time for that.
Right.
Or,
Right. Yeah. And I like how that's part of you guys' message. And I know you've been saying you've been vigilant about it for years now. And now it's kind of as if it's hit the tipping point. And it's certainly not ideal. But I mean, down here where I am in Texas, I can walk into the store, no mask, don't get bothered. And I just go straight to the produce section. And
yeah,
I think it's part of the mentality is not being hostile toward everybody in the store with the mask on, but just realizing that it is a warrior's path, and you will connect with people out there once you do plug in, and that's been so helpful for me. So I'm looking forward to staying involved and getting into more projects.
Yeah, most definitely, man. So so it's great having you on here. And
yeah, thanks again, man.
We have you on again, and yeah, man, thank you.
Yeah, good deal. See you next time.
All right, take care, man.
All right.
So all right, so that was cool. Yeah. Give Nick a big thank you in the comments in the over there. Appreciate him being on here. And yeah, that'll do it for another episode 27 of the Mucus-free Life podcast. And as always, I hope you got some out of this. You got some inspiration, got some information, and you are better equipped to go down this path, because I understand this is a tough path, especially in 2021. You got crazy nut jobs out here trying to wear a mask while they eating pizza and stuff. It's hard. It's, you know, so to be this rational, to be talking this much truth is not always welcome out there. And so we have your back. The Mucus-free community has your back. Plug into the community. You know, every Wednesday we have free meetups. And if you want information about that, sign up for the newsletter. And I've been sending out every Wednesday the information about that. It's also put out a few other places. And looks like we got Roy's jumping on here. Well, I'll let you on real quick, but we actually closing out the show here, man. What's going on, Roy?
Oh, hello, I got your stream up on another tab.
Definitely strange times. Somebody asked,
I got a
my thoughts on the vaccinations, which I have a video on that already, or a couple of videos where I talk about that, but I'll just say my thoughts on the vaccination is I'm not getting one.
But you trying to, I'll mute you while you find that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let me know when you find it.
Your death.
I guess you got it kind of lost out there. So okay, he left, but so yeah. So anyway, appreciate all you guys. Again, all the information is down in the comments, or not the comment section, but the description section. Everything that you need. Sign up. We got our Indiegogo campaign. Any contribution you can make is very, very much appreciated. And yeah, love all y'all, man. This is out here just trying to, as we say, change the world one bite at a time. You know, one bite at a time, one enema at a time. You know, we're gonna change this planet, clean it up. So much cleansing needs to be done, and it's time. It's time to let go of the pain and the suffering. As a lot of people say, this is the age of Aquarius. Well, we bringing that into existence. It's time to get rid of the pain and the suffering and the ignorance and the stupidity. It's time to flush it down the toilet, and we're gonna get on off here. So I see you back on, Roy, but I'm gonna go ahead and close this out, man. We'll get you on next time. So all right. So everybody, I thank you so much, and until next time, peace, love, and breath.